I would like to call to order the City Council meeting for the City of Wheatridge, Colorado for October the 12th, 2020. In just a moment, you will see the American flag on the screen. And when you do, if you would please stand as you are able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would the clerk please call the roll of the members?
Denise Hoppy.
Present.
Judy Hutchinson.
Here.
Zachary Urban.
Present.
Rachel Hulteen.
Present.
Amanda Weaver.
Here.
Corey Stites.
Present.
Leah Dozeman.
Here.
Valerie Nosler-Beck.
Present.
Mr. Mayor, all members of the council are present.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all joining us. We have three proclamations this evening, and our first one is a proclamation about Domestic Violence Month in October of 2020. And joining us tonight is Deb Bittner with the Family Tree. Ms. Bittner, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Mayor Starker and council members. It's really an honor to be here tonight. So yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. And I tell you what, let me give you a little time to speak right after I read the declaration or the proclamation.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. This is a proclamation proclaiming Domestic Violence Month, October 2020, to designate the month of October 20 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Whereas domestic violence impacts countless Coloradans without regard to age, race, religion, or economic status, as victims suffer at the hands of a spouse or partner. And it affects their children, families, and entire communities. And whereas the City of Wheatridge is committed to the reduction of domestic violence and the health, safety, and welfare of its residents. And whereas the Wheatridge Police Department is committed to providing assistance to victims and witnesses of crime and other traumatic events through victim assistance partnerships and awareness-related efforts and events. And whereas Wheatridge joins the others across Colorado and the nation in supporting victims of domestic violence and shares the worthy goals of this month-long observance, and likewise supports the work of public and private entities that strive to provide the best coordinated response to domestic violence in communities across this state, sending a loud and clear message to abusers that domestic violence is not tolerated in the City of Wheatridge. Now, therefore, be it resolved that on behalf of the City Council and the people of the City of Wheatridge, I, Bud Starker, Mayor of Wheatridge, Colorado, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim October 2020 as Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the City of Wheatridge. In witness thereof, on this 12th day of October 2020, Bud Starker, Mayor. Ms. Bittner, thank you again for joining us. Would you like to say a few comments on this?
Yes, sir. Thank you for your patience. And again, thank you, Mayor and council members. So yeah, so for many of you who've been around for a number of years, you will know that Family Tree has been part of the Jefferson County community for well over 40 years now, and started as a partnership, a public-private partnership between Jefferson County and Family Tree to address the issues of runaway and homeless youth. And very soon, we realized the interconnectedness between child abuse, neglect, domestic violence, and homelessness. So those are the three pillars of the services that Family Tree provides in our community. And just a few of the statistics from last year, our domestic violence services served over 1,149 people through our 4 domestic violence service areas. Excitingly, we're also working in prevention, and 273 youth were provided information on healthy teen dating in the Jefferson County school districts. And we provided 8,398 nights of shelter at our Roots of Courage domestic violence shelter. Unfortunately, we had to turn away over 1,500 individuals. And part of that really started with COVID, because we are having to practice safety and social distancing. And so our capacity has been reduced. And it's tragic and sad when we have to turn people away, but we are working on alternatives, including relationships with a hotel here in the community, so that we are being able to provide individuals with a safe place to go. And just on a broader landscape, Jefferson County DA's office has said that their fast track numbers are up over 13.5% from January to September last year to January to September this year. Fast track cases for the entire year last year were 1,680. We're at 1,447 to date, and we still have 3 months to go. The severity is increasing in those cases, including over 40% in the felony includes strangulation. And strangulation is a very serious aggression on one's person and can potentially be deadly. I'd like to just give a plug for Family Tree and our work in our community as partners with Porchlight. Hopefully you all have heard of Porchlight. We're very proud to be partners in that. And hopefully Porchlight will be opening in November, and we will have 2 of our domestic violence programs located there, our legal outreach team and our domestic violence outreach team, our legal advocacy team and our domestic violence outreach team. So we appreciate it very much, and we're so thankful for the city of Wheatridge and the amazing police department at Wheatridge. They're absolutely our partners in this work, and we couldn't do it without our wonderful supportive community. So if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them at this time. Mayor, I think you're muted.
I was actually muted. Thank you so much. And thank you, Ms. Bittner, for joining us. And thank you for the work that Family Tree does on this issue. And, not only in the month of October, which is when we recognize this issue, but 12 months a year. And I know that you do provide great service to our community and to your clients. And we really appreciate the amount of work that you do to keep our community safer and healthier. So thank you very much. And thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
I have the next proclamation is in appreciation of Division Chief Dave Pickett in recognition of his dedicated service to the city of Wheatridge. And is Division Chief Pickett with us tonight?
I am here. I don't know why the camera doesn't work, but hopefully you can hear me.
Well, I can hear you and I recognize that distinctive voice. Chief Pickett, thank you for being here. Whereas the mayor and city council of the city of Wheatridge formally express appreciation to Division Chief Dave Pickett, who has dedicated his career in law enforcement and service to the city of Wheatridge. And whereas Division Chief Pickett has dedicated 36 years as a public service in law enforcement, and throughout his career, he has exhibited a commitment to the organizational values of the Wheatridge Police Department. And whereas Division Chief Pickett began employment with the Wheatridge Police Department on February 16th, 1984, served as a supervisor and manager for the Patrol Operations and the Support Services Division, promoted to the rank of sergeant in 1988 and commander in 2007. And whereas over the past 36 years, In conjunction with his assigned duties, Division Chief Pickett exhibited a strong commitment to training and teaching law enforcement skills, in particular firearms and arrest control techniques. And whereas Division Chief Pickett was an original member of the first Wheatridge SWAT team and eventually rose to become commander of the unit. And whereas in his first year on the job, Division Chief Pickett was awarded the department's Medal of Valor after being wounded during the capture of a suspect. And whereas Division Chief Pickett graduated from the Police Executive Research Forum's Senior Management Institute for Police, as well as Northwestern University's School of Staff and Command, and was on the Tactical Planning Committee for the 2008 Democratic National Convention, where he led an inner perimeter SWAT team. And whereas over the course of his law enforcement career, Division Chief Pickett's contributions are best described in the countless commendations he has received, including 2 Medals of Achievement, the Medal of Commendation, 4 Medals of Recognition, and the Medal of Valor. And whereas it is fitting, in conjunction with Division Chief Pickett's retirement, we formally recognize his many contributions to the Wheatridge Police Department and the city, and express to him our sincere gratitude for his years of service and outstanding contributions, keeping this community safe. Now therefore be it resolved. On behalf of the City Council and the people of the City of Wheatridge, I, Bud Starker, Mayor of the City of Wheatridge, Colorado, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim appreciation to Division Chief Dave Pickett for his 36 years of service to the City of Wheatridge. In witness thereof, on this 12th day of October, Bud Starker, Mayor. Congratulations. I'll give you a hand for that, Mr. Pickett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
there-
Thank you, City Council. And I just want to say that it has absolutely been my honor to serve as a member of the Wheatridge Police Department. I've had the opportunity to get to do a lot of things in the last 36 years, and I certainly appreciate all the support that the city and the departmental leadership has provided me. And I also really appreciate the acceptance that the rank and file has shown in my attempts to lead over the years. And I just cannot imagine getting to work for a better city or a better police department.
Well, Division Chief Pickett, we appreciate your service to our city. I know that you've been really a fixture in our police department for almost forever, and not only there, but doing great work and putting your life and your safety at risk to provide safety and security for our citizens, and that's a noble enterprise. And I want to thank you for your service, and also wish you a good next chapter in your long career, because I know that many great things are coming your way. And I see Mr. Goff has his hand up. Mr. Goff.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd also like to extend my thanks to Mr. Pickett. He, as you all know, he stepped in when Chief Brennan retired, and him and his partner, Commander Lawrence, kept us going through the transitions. So I really appreciate Dave stepping up and did a great job. I think he wanted to retire a few months early, but we begged him to stay around for a little bit. And when Chief Murtha came on, he also begged him to stick around for a few more months. So thank you for sticking around a few more months, Mr. Pickett. Thank you.
All right.
It's really been my pleasure.
Well, thank you very much, Dave, and really congratulations. And we hope you'll come back and see us sometime. Don't be a stranger.
I couldn't get stranger, and I won't be one.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks so much. I have one more proclamation in appreciation of Patrick McDaniel in recognition of his dedicated service to the City of Wheatridge. And we have Mr. McDaniel on with us tonight.
I don't see him there.
Okay.
Chief or
division chiefs. I don't know if you know if he was able to make it.
Yeah, I spoke to him earlier and he wasn't sure he was going to be able to make it tonight. And I don't see him on there.
Okay, well, I'd like to go ahead and make this proclamation anyway. Whereas the mayor and city council of the city of Wheatridge formally express appreciation to Detective Patrick McDaniel, who has served the city of Wheatridge. And whereas Detective Patrick McDaniel has provided 14 years of professionalism as a public servant to the city of Wheatridge and has exhibited his commitment to the organizational values of the Wheatridge Police Department. And whereas Detective Patrick McDaniel began his employment with the Wheatridge Police Department on September 29th, 2006, worked in the Patrol Bureau for 9 years before becoming a detective assigned to the property team. And whereas over the past 14 years, in conjunction with his assigned duties, Detective Patrick McDaniel displayed his commitment to the community by participating in the Special Olympics of Colorado events, including the Polar Plunge and the Torch Run. And whereas over the course of his time serving in the Wheatridge Police Department, Detective McDaniel has received medals of commendation for life-saving efforts he provided, as well as for the exemplary manner in which he served as the lead investigator on a homicide investigation that resulted in the arrest of 4 suspects. And whereas it is fitting, in conjunction with Detective Patrick McDaniel's departure from the city of Wheatridge, we formally recognize his contributions to the police department and to the city, and express to him our sincere gratitude for his years of service and outstanding contribution to keep our communities safe. Now, therefore, be it resolved that on behalf of the City Council and the people of the city of Wheatridge, I, Bud Starker, Mayor of the city of Wheatridge, Colorado, by virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby proclaim appreciation to Detective Patrick McDaniel for his 14 years of service to the city of Wheatridge. In witness thereof, on this 12th day of October, 2020, Bud Starker, Mayor. So congratulations to Detective Patrick McDaniel. We appreciate your service to our community, and thank you for your service and for keeping our community safe. So those are our proclamations tonight. And with that, we will go to approval of minutes. In your packet, counselors, you have the study session notes of September 21, 2020. If there are no objections raised, we will let those stand as presented. So ordered. You have the City Council minutes for the meeting of September 28th, 2020. If there are no corrections, we will let those minutes stand as presented. So ordered. You have also in your packet special study session notes for September 28th, 2020. If there are no objections, we will let those stand as presented. And that's so ordered. And you have study session notes of October 5, 2020. If there are no corrections, we will let those stand as presented. And that is so ordered. If there are no objections, we will proceed with the agenda as presented. And that is so ordered. We are now at our citizens' right to speak. Citizens may speak on any matter not on the agenda for a maximum of 3 minutes under citizens' right to speak. There is no one in our council chambers speaking tonight, so we will take callers on that have raised their hands on the Zoom format. And after we finish with the Zoom format, we will ask if anyone on the telephone would like to speak under citizens' right to speak. You will have 3 minutes to speak after you, when you are recognized into the meeting. Please give your first name and your last name. If you would please spell your last name for the record and provide us with your address. And you will have 3 minutes to speak during this session. And our Mayor Pro Tem will be the timekeeper. So, Ms. Scheck, do we have speakers who have raised their hands in the Zoom format who would like to speak?
Yes, Mayor, we have Michelle Cotton.
Okay, Ms. Cotton, if you would like to unmute yourself and introduce yourself, and then please proceed.
I just wanted to clarify out for a moment, and I wanted to discuss about item number 2. So should I wait, or is this time?
Yes, if you would like to speak on an agenda item, if you would wait until that agenda item comes up in the meeting, and we will have public comment on each end of agenda item. Right now, we are talking about any item that is not on the agenda.
Perfect, thank you. I'm going to lower my hand.
Thank you. Ms. Scheck? You're on mute, Ms. Scheck.
Darn it. Sorry
Don't
about
you-
that, Mayor. I don't see anyone else with their hands up at this point.
Okay, if you would like to speak under citizens' right to speak, you may raise your hand in the Zoom format. Or if you are not on Zoom and on another type of device, if you would speak up, we will recognize you. I don't hear anybody. We'll give it one more chance. This is our citizens' right to speak on any item not on the agenda. If you would like to speak, either raise your hand in the Zoom format or speak up, and we will recognize you. Okay, I don't hear anyone. We're going to close our citizens' right to speak, and we will go to our first agenda item. Mr. Stites, would you please introduce this item?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council Bill number 18-2020, an ordinance amending Chapter 26 of the Wheatridge Code of Laws concerning sign and letter notice requirements for quasi-judicial public hearings, case number ZOA-20-06. At issue, requirements for notice for public hearings are provided in the city chapter and in Chapter 20, or in the city charter and Chapter 26 of the Code of Laws. This includes notice by sign and letter, as well as publication in the newspaper and on the city website. The purpose of this code amendment is to modify current practice related to the sign and letter notice, specifically to increase the number of posted signs required based on frontage length and parcel configuration, and to increase the letter notice radius from 300 feet to 600 feet for public hearings.
Thank you very much. This is an ordinance on second reading. It is a public hearing, and I'm going to open the public hearing, and this is not quasi-judicial. So, Mr. Goff, do we have a staff presentation on this item?
We do, very, very brief one. Ken Johnson, our Community Development Director.
Mr. Johnstone.
Thanks, Patrick and Mayor. Actually, Lauren Mikulak is here as well, who's been the point person on this one. So she's going to make a few comments.
Okay, Ms. Mikulak.
Thank you. Good evening. For the record, Lauren Mikulak, and I'm the planning manager with the Community Development Department. The ordinance before you tonight is a follow from our study session discussion that we had on August 3rd, and the proposed ordinance is consistent with the direction that council provided at the time. As noted, when Mr. Stites introduced this item, we're increasing the mailing radius from 300 to 600 feet, and that means the mailing for the neighborhood meetings and the public hearings now the same radius. That 600 feet is better aligned with other communities. 300 feet had been quite a bit lower than what other jurisdictions are typically using. We're also requiring more signs based on the parcel size and number of parcels involved. We did take some of your feedback from study session, and now there's sort of 4 categories we used to determine how many signs are required. The council action form included an example property for each of those 4 categories. We have designed the posting signs, redesigned them. We're just using up the last maybe dozen or 2 of our old version. Planning Commission did hear this item at a public hearing on September 17th, and public comment at that meeting supported increasing the notice. There were a few comments suggesting it be increased even further. We did not receive any additional public comment after Planning Commission and prior to this hearing. We are recommending approval. I do have some of those graphics and tables if we need to pull them up, but otherwise I'm happy to take any of your questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Before we go to questions from council, I would like to open this up to questions from the public. If anyone from the public who would like to comment on this, you may do so at this time. Either raise your hand in the Zoom format. We will do that first, and then we will go to people on the telephone. So if you would like to speak on this agenda item number 1, you may do so now. Raise your hand. Ms. Scheck, do we see anyone wishing to speak on this item?
I don't see anyone with their hand up, Mayor.
Okay. I'll go one more time. If you would like to speak on this item, please raise your hand in the Zoom format or unmute yourself and speak up, and we will recognize you. Okay, there's doesn't appear to be any public comment on this, so I would like to go to council for questions of staff on this item. Just raise your hand if you have a question. Okay, I don't see any questions on this one. Ms. Noslerbeck, that wasn't a hand for a question. Okay, thank you. All right, Mr. Stites, may I have a motion on this item?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve Council Bill number 18-2020, an ordinance amending Chapter 26 of the Wheatridge Code of Laws concerning sign and letter notice requirements for quasi-judicial public hearings on second reading, and then it take effect 15 days after final publication.
Second.
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 We have a second by Ms. Hoppy.
Okay.
Okay, and do we have discussion on the motion? Ms. Hoppy.
I just would like to thank Council Member Stites for joining with me to bring this in front of council and for everybody to look at this. And we came up with, we had a good productive study session. We came up with some good direction, and thank you to staff for taking our discussion and consensus and putting it into a very nice ordinance. And I really appreciate that. I know that there are a lot of citizens that really wanted some changes to our notification process, and I think that we've really hit a good note with this. So thank you to everybody for your work.
Okay, thank you. Additional questions or discussion on the motion? Mr. Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to echo Ms. Hoppy's sentiments there, I really appreciate staff and council for working so hard on this. And I know it doesn't go quite as far as some wanted, and probably as far as I wanted when we kind of started down the process, but I think it's a realistic balance between what other cities are doing, and it's going to bring hopefully more people to the conversation as far as our quasi-judicial public hearings. So I appreciate all the work. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, would you please raise your hand in front of the screen, and will the clerk please count the votes?
Motion is passed unanimously, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we will not go to the no side, and we will go on to agenda item number 2. Ms. Weaver, would you please introduce this item?
Will, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is resolution number 49, 2020, a resolution approving a major subdivision plat on property zoned residential 1 or R1 and located at the northwest corner of West 2nd Avenue and Kipling Street. This is case number WS-20-01 / Hilltop Estates. The issue is that the applicant is requesting an approval of a major subdivision for property located at the northwest corner of 32nd Avenue and Kipling. It is 6.85 acres in size, and the purpose of this subdivision request is to establish lot lines, tracts, easements, and right-of-way dedication of a new public street for a 14-lot single-family home development permitted by the residential 1 or R1 zone district.
Thank you. This is a resolution. It is a public hearing. I'm going to open the public hearing and go to Mr. Goff. Do we have a staff presentation on this item?
We do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Scott Cutler, our planner too in our community development department.
Mr. Cutler.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm going to play 2 videos tonight. First will be the staff presentation, and then I'll switch over to the applicant presentation. Give me just a second. Can you all see that video on my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thanks. It says I'm offline, so I'm going to try to restart the video somehow.
Okay, we'll,
Give me just a second.
that's fine.
Hey everyone, can I give you a little trick that I learned today?
So,
On Zoom, if you hold down your space bar, it takes you off of mute. And then when you release it, you go back on mute. It's really
Okay.
great.
I never would have picked that little trick up.
We are good to go now. Lost the internet connection for just a second.
Okay. That can happen.
My name is Scott Cutler, and I'm a planner with the City of Wheatridge Community Development Department. We are here to hear case number WS 2001, which is a request for approval of a 14-lot major subdivision on property zone residential 1. I would like to enter into the public record the contents of the case file, the subdivision regulations, and this digital presentation. The properties within the City of Wheatridge. All appropriate notification and posting requirements have been met, and therefore City Council has jurisdiction to hear this case. This is a 2018 aerial photo of the site. Properties outlined in red. It's approximately 6.85 acres, and it consists of a couple of parcels under one ownership. It's located around the property at the hard corner of 32nd Avenue and Kipling Street. Rocky Mountain Ditch is the northern border, and the site is currently vacant, but it was recently used as grazing land. The surrounding area is primarily single-family homes, and Crown Hill Park is to the southeast. The subject site is zoned Residential 1, R1, as are all of the properties in the surrounding area. Further north and south in Kipling are more commercial areas, but this area is primarily low-density residential in character. The topography of the site is varied, making development challenging. The site slopes from the south to the north. Each orange contour shown here is 5 feet of elevation change, so portions of the site are up to 40 feet higher than others. The topography and shape of the property affect the ability to develop under a standard zone district. So as you'll see in a minute, the resulting lot shapes and street reflect the conditions on the property. Subdivision regulations are found in Article 4 of the Zoning Code. A subdivision is a reconfiguration of lots, tracts, or parcels for sale or development. A plat is a technical document that removes, creates, or defines property lines, allows the city to evaluate right-of-way, and allows the city to evaluate construction documents. It does not change the zoning, it does not change permitted uses, and it does not look at site design or building placement for individual properties. It enables development already permitted by the current zoning. The purpose of the request is to create legal lots for 14 single-family homes, which will allow the site to develop and lots to be sold. Tracts for the purposes of drainage, easements, and landscaping are also established by the subdivision. A new public street, Hillside Drive, will provide access to most of the lots and connect to 32nd Avenue, aligning with the existing Hillside Drive to the south. The plat also establishes multiple access, utility, and drainage easements. All lots will meet the R1 requirements for at least 12,500 square feet of lot area and 100 feet of lot width. Due to the shape of the property, there are also 2 flag lots, which are only required to be 25 feet wide at the street frontage, expanding to 100 feet wide at the main part of the lot. Cul-de-sac lots are only required to be 30 feet wide and then expand out. The lots will be shown on the next couple of slides. This is an excerpt from page 2 of the plat document, which is Exhibit 3 in the staff report. The main streets are shown, including the new Hillside Drive, which will provide access to lots 3 through 14. The Rocky Mountain Ditch is on the north side of the site. The 3 tracts are shown in gray. The next slides will show some more detail, so I'll move along. This is the eastern portion of the plat with major easements and tracts annotated. 2 tracts are shown in green, which will function as open space, and Tract A at the northeast corner also contains an underground water detention facility. A pedestrian easement, shown in light blue, will allow a sidewalk to connect from the Hillside Drive cul-de-sac to a new sidewalk on Kipling Street being built as part of this development. Tract B, shown in gray, will provide access to an existing home on the adjacent property. A driveway currently exists in this location, and access to that property is not being changed, just preserved under Tract B in an easement. This is the western portion of the plat. You can see the continuance of Hillside Drive to intersect with 32nd Avenue at the south. A large sanitation easement is along 32nd Avenue for the purposes of serving lots 1 and 2. Lots 1 and 2 in the southwest corner will gain access from 32nd Avenue, a condition which was approved by the Engineering Division. The Rocky Mountain Ditch, which I've said runs along the north side of the property, will be placed in a separate easement, allowing the ditch company access for maintenance. This is reflective of existing conditions on the north and south sides of the ditch. Since Wheatridge is not a full-service city, we sent the application a referral to outside agencies, including fire, water, and sanitation, and completed an internal review. There are no remaining comments on this application, and both the Planning Division and Engineering Division have found the plat to be approvable. Construction documents, including paving, drainage, and grading plans, are under review by the Engineering Division, and a landscaping and streetscape plan are under review by the Planning Division, but are not part of this presentation nor review. Before the hearing, the property was posted for 15 days, and letters were sent to property owners within a 600-foot radius. Comments collected on Wheatridge Speaks will be reviewed by the city councilors and entered into the public record. On October 1st, 2020, Planning Commission recommended approval of this request. Ultimately, staff has concluded the request meets the subdivision regulations and all agencies can serve the property. It will allow the development of the site as permitted by the R1 zone district to proceed. For all of those reasons, staff recommends approval of the request. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cutler.
Thanks. I'm going to share the applicant's presentation in just a second, but I wanted to point out a couple of things. We did receive about 4 public comments on the Wheatridge Speaks forum that were sent to everyone on City Council. And I just wanted to inform you that the Planning Commission voted to approve this 8-0. I neglected to have that in my presentation. So now I'll play the applicant's video. Give me just a second.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Brad. I'm with Workshop Colorado. I'm here to present a major subdivision called Hilltop Estates. Hilltop Estates is a subdivision of a tract of land located in the northeast quarter of Section 28, or more commonly known as the northwest corner of 32nd and Kipling. Hilltop Estates is roughly a 6.8 acre parcel. It is currently zoned R1 and is vacant. Our current proposal is to subdivide into 14 single-family custom home sites. Each of these custom home sites will conform and meet all of the minimum requirements of the R1 zoning set forth by Wheatridge. As part of our project, we plan on completing several public improvements. Some of these improvements consist of improvements along Rocky Mountain Ditch, improvements along Kipling Street, and improvements along 32nd Avenue. The entrance to our subdivision will be off of 32nd Avenue, directly across from Hillside Drive. We plan on subdividing and building 14 single-family custom homes here. Workshop Colorado is a full-scale design build firm located and native to Colorado. Workshop Colorado has completed well over 200 homes in the single-family market. Some of our recent projects in Wheatridge consist of Mirkwood Estates at 32nd and Robb Street, Quail Creek Estates at 32nd and Quail. Our vision for Hilltop Estates is that the design and construction is timeless and permanent. Our architecture style will lend itself to a mid-century style in form, volume, and massing with a fun workshop influence. please take a minute to review the plat that we are proposing for a 14-lot single-family subdivision that conforms to the R1 zoning, which is already in place for this property. Thank you for taking the time to understand our project. We look forward to better assisting you with any questions that you may have in the future. Thanks again.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Cutler. Before we go to questions from council, I would like to open this discussion up to comments from the public. If you would like to speak on agenda item number 2, if you would raise your hand in the Zoom format, or when we're finished with the Zoom format, we will go to folks on the telephone. If there's, Ms. Scheck, is there anyone who has raised their hand in the Zoom format who would like to speak on this item?
Yes, Mayor. We have Scott Abel with Melody on deck.
Okay, Mr. Abel, if you would please introduce yourself and give us your address, you may continue.
Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can.
Good evening, sir. My name is Scott Abel. My address is 10270 West 33rd Avenue.
Okay,
And there's go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, please continue.
Yes, I have several subjects to talk about this evening. One thing that I noticed, I sat over the weekend and observed traffic coming off of Kipling on 32nd westward. The traffic, one of the concerns I have about that is I do believe that city council planning needs to really consider de-escalation lane?
Deceleration lane.
Deceleration lane. There is a lot of traffic via vehicle and bicycle traffic. And I actually, while sitting there observed, I got to see a bicyclist got hit by a car this weekend in that general area. So there is a lot of traffic, and then there was another accident just on the intersection. So I think that's one consideration that the council really needs to look at. The other thing to look at is lot number 5. Lot number 5 is 11,005 and some change square foot. If you really look at that, that is not a buildable space. That sits about 30 feet above my property. And they are gonna, I just don't see how that could be a buildable space per code to meet the requirements of that. And the grade, and not a retention wall if they're gonna build right on the property line. Pending your question, sir, that's all I have.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Abel. Ms. Scheck, do we have additional citizens wishing to speak on this item?
Yes, Mayor. So we have Melody with Jesse on deck, Jesse Bryant on deck.
Okay.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, I can.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, City of Wheatridge, City Council. I'm Melody Mascarenhas. I'll spell my last name Mascarenaz. I live at 62 Hillside Drive, Wheatridge. My family has lived in this established residential neighborhood of Paramount Heights for almost 20 years, across the street from the planned subdivision. As you know, the development property is very unique in that it is a rare piece of property over 6 acres that's never been developed. It's located on the heavily used and crowded 32nd and Kipling Avenue. Also, it oversees the spectacular views of the Rocky Mountains and has some magnificent large trees. We were informed at the October 1st Planning Commission meeting that the new homeowners of this development are going to enjoy these views. But what about the existing homeowners who currently have these views? Also, will the developer keep any of the established trees? Also, what is the elevation that these lots will be graded to? I've asked these same questions previously of the Wheatridge City Planning Department, but the answers are vague at best. So they have told me the site is substantially lower than the neighborhoods to the south of 32nd, so the impact to views will be minimal. Dirt may be moved around to provide flat sites for home building, but the elevation of the overall site is not increasing. Some terracing will occur, and they are not sure if fill dirt is needed or not. But at the planning commission meeting, the developer mentioned several trucks of fill dirt a day for an extended period of time will be placed on the site. I've also been informed the overall site is not increasing height, but it is being redesigned somewhat to accommodate a roadway and building sites with more gradual slopes. Also, I'd like to address traffic, which has been mentioned previously before the Planning Commission in regards to concern over the high traffic. There are already impacts on this busy, dangerous 32nd and Kipling area. Currently, on a regular basis, I have to wait to enter my garage from cars that I'm dodging coming up the hill. That intersection has frequent backups even during non-pandemic times. I believe the safety would be improved by providing a decelerating turn lane going north into the development. This would minimize the interruption to the flow of traffic going westbound, and in addition, it would be helpful to avoid the impending bike riders who habitually ride down the hill at a high rate of speed. Even though the other developments on 32nd have a similar number of homes, I believe the grade of the hill here is different from the others and are further impacted by the fact of this location a short distance from the busy intersection of 32nd and Kipling. Construction. I'm imploring the developer to be a good neighbor during construction. Over the years, several young families have moved into the neighborhood with small children. Please ask the developer to watch speed limits, and in addition, ask the city of considering changing speed limits on 32nd and adjacent streets, possibly adding traffic calming devices on Hillside Drive. I spoke with homeowners across the street from the current development on Quail Street the developers has built or is in the process of building, and was informed that the construction crews have blocked driveways with worker vehicles. Our neighborhood is very concerned that this development is going to be the source of long-term and disagreeable disruption to the neighborhood. We ask the developer to do their best to be a considerate neighbor. Thank you for affording me the opportunity to comment. Melody Mascarenas and the Mascarenas family. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments tonight.
I'm sorry,
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just interrupt briefly for a procedural matter. I don't believe the public hearing got formally opened here, did it?
I thought that I did.
Just to, in an excess of caution, if you...
I will open the public hearing again. How's that?
That's great. And if you could confirm, just for the record, that the presentations by Mr. Cutler and by the applicant are part of the record, and make the statement regarding persons choosing to testify are considered to have sworn to tell the truth as they know it.
Well, now with regard to that, okay. Let me say that we have opened the public hearing. I believe that I was in error and did not swear in the people who were going to speak tonight, so I will do that. If you intend to speak tonight, then the comments and you will speak and tell the truth as you understand it in this hearing. I would like to acknowledge that Mr. Cutler has provided the staff presentation on this, and that the client has had a video presentation. And to date, or to time, we have had 2 public speakers on this item. Did I cover all of the issues?
Yes, you did. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Dahl. Okay, Ms. Scheck, do we have any other speakers who would like to speak on this item?
We do, Mayor. We have Jesse Bryant with Michelle Cotton on deck.
Okay, Mr. Bryant, if you would like to go ahead, give us your name and address.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, this is Jesse Bryant. I live at 3250 Miller Street, which is right at the corner of 32nd and Miller. My property butts up to the ditch, and in the far west corner of the lot that we are talking about, so right across from lot 1. I had a few questions and just concerns regarding this. I am happy that we're considering single family homes as opposed to condos or something larger, which had we previously been brought up. I do still feel like 14 single-family homes is a lot for that property because of the sloping, and I feel like it'll impede on the privacy of myself and my neighbors along 33rd. I feel like people will all be looking in our backyards. I know in the presentation, improvements along the Rocky Mountain ditch were mentioned, and I'm very curious what those specifically are. Right now, there's a lot of cottonwood trees there that would maybe provide some coverage, so I would like more information on what those improvements are, if trees would be removed, or what that means and looks like. Another concern that was raised in some letters and has been raised in other city council meetings regarding that property is the high water table that we have in this neighborhood and the flooding issues that we've had in the past. So I have concerns that adding that many more houses and all of the pressure that'll put on the land and development there will further raise the water table, and they'll possibly be flooding downhill, which would again be my property and everyone around along 33rd and further down. And like other people have mentioned, I think we need to really take into consideration the traffic, the fact that 32nd is a major bike highway and people are really coming down that slope right there at an incredible speed, and having an in and out to a cul-de-sac there could potentially be dangerous for bikers and walkers going up to Crown Hill Park. So yes, I would love to see if we could stick with the 6 single-family homes for what I believe this property is zoned for right now without needing any further rezoning. Yeah, and I hope we can get some answers to what these improvements along the ditch mean. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bryant. And just to be clear, this is not a rezoning on this property. It's approval of the plat. Ms. Scheck, do we have our next speaker?
We do. Mayor, we have Michelle Cotton with Ellen on deck.
Ms. Cotton?
Hi, Mr. Mayor, greetings, council. I just wanted to, reiterate what everyone has really talked about concerns about traffic, concerns about the terracing, grading that's going to be involved, construction-free, construction traffic. There seemed that there was a previous wetland there. I know during the planning phase they said it was not a federally protected wetland, but there are some environmental concerns. We have great horned owls back there, hawks all the time. It's concerning. The shifting soils, the amount of sort of weight that would be, just kind of up on top of us. I know that there was discussion that all the cottonwoods and everything was going to be cleared out according to the ditch company. So that's concerning too, where all of that would be gone. But my biggest concern really is like the property lines. And again, I'm not a surveyor. I don't know, but when I look at the lots, it looks like the lots are drawn up to my property line across from the ditch. And even if it is the midline of the ditch, it seems like the lots are larger on the draft plan. So that concerns me. And then lot 5, my understanding is that all these lots for R1 should have a 100-foot lot width requirement, and why a flag lot is allowed when they're going to be terracing and grading everything to begin with. So I just feel like the lots are drawn a little funky, and that the project is just cramming too many homes on the property. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cotton. I didn't get your address. Could you give us your address, please?
I apologize. It's 310 West 33rd Avenue.
All right. Thank you very much. Ms. Scheck, our next speaker.
Yes, Mayor, we have Ellen with Stan on deck.
So I apologize. I believe that my daughter's online kindergarten account is recognized as Ellen, but I am actually her mother, and our entire family lives at 10315 West 33rd Avenue, the north west corner of Kipling and 32nd. My name is Megan, Meghan, last name same as Ellen's, Schleicher, Schleicher. And I apologize. It's been difficult with a pandemic going on, trying to manage full-time jobs and children at home nonstop. Participation in this discussion has not been at what I would normally try to do. So my comment today on Wheatridge Speaks was late, and my ability to participate in the Planning Commission meeting was not possible, but I just want to make sure you hear my voice as a current resident of Wheatridge and make sure that we really address what this plan is asking for you all to approve this evening. The plat itself and the lines where the properties will be determined is really a big factor for all of us who currently live in the area, and it's a concern. I want to reiterate the traffic safety risk factors at the corner of 32nd and Kipling. They're increased and not improved with this plan. Living here means I've seen accidents, but I've also seen incredible numbers of near misses between cars and pedestrians, as well as a previous speaker mentioned, bikers. This development does not improve sightlines, pedestrian safety, really the sidewalks that have been proposed don't remove the concerns there. And they don't reduce the traffic volume at this corner, which is really one of the major problems. If the development must occur, then the safety must be addressed at the exact same time. We don't want to increase the safety risk or extend the disruption for current residents with multiple projects at different times to try and remedy this issue. Additionally, living on a significant hill means that erosion is inevitable. I don't care what kind of drainage solutions that they've proposed are going to be in place, it's going to be a problem. Less land and less plants to absorb the water means that there will be a disruption throughout the construction. And then once the new homes are in place, it's impossible to prevent any drainage issues from arising. And no matter what the diversion plans are, the older homes just north of this development will experience issues with their soil and the structural integrity of their homes. I really suggest that there needs to be a security fund for resolution of these problems, because it shouldn't be the burden of the current residents to solve the developers' issues with this. The number of lots on this oddly shaped property is another item. It's very concerning. Wheatridge has a financial penalty for not including any park space, but compared to the value of these new homes, the financial penalty is really negligible and does not serve as a deterrent to overdevelopment. Wheatridge residents have consistently expressed a desire to retain the agricultural and non-urban aesthetic. The number of proposed homes does not meet this desire. Additionally, neighbors with yards bordering this property will have new large towering homes with views into the older and smaller homes to the north, and will create an invasion of privacy without a better solution for a berm wall or trees or something. And so we need to address that in advance of this particular proposal being approved. The property map itself shows that the new homes will have the ditch included in their property. As this has been explained to me, it's due to the shape of the proposed lots. The shape should not be a factor for the developer, or it should be a factor for the developer, but it shouldn't provide the newly developed property greater privilege over the ditch and the use of that ditch than the current residents have. Finally, my last suggestion is that this really become, I know it's R1 and I welcome development that's been handled appropriately, both, well, all these things in terms of safety and other issues. The only solution I really see is a park. I'd suggest, from the pandemic being in place and everyone mentioning that they don't have ways to get their dogs out to exercise, that we consider at some point that this be a dog park instead of planned residences. It'd be great for the current residents of Wheatridge to not only maintain this kind of natural environment at this particular corner, but it would also help those who currently live near and around it. And it would help all of the residents to have some type of park use, but especially some place for dog exercise, which to my knowledge, I haven't seen in Wheatridge exist. So that's my best suggestion. I appreciate your time. I know this isn't an easy task, and we really do commend all of the city council members for their hard work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fleischer. Ms. Scheck, our next speaker.
Hello.
Thank you, Mayor. We have Stan with Suzanne on deck.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay, good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors, and staff. My name is Stan Koniz, K-O-N-I-Z, and I live at 10100 West 33rd Avenue. And this development is literally in my backyard. So I wanted to raise a couple issues that came up at the Planning Commission that I think that the council needs to be aware of and further address. And one is the desire of the ditch company to level all the cottonwood trees along the right-of-way. I went out today and counted 8 of them, and they're grand old trees, some of them probably over 100 years old. And the ditch company has made it clear to me many times that they do not own any trees, but if they had their choice, they would cut every tree down along the ditch right away, and basically put the ditch in a concrete sleeve. Well, that's not really the attitude that I think Wheatridge, being known as Tree City USA, wants to promote. And so that was an item raised at the Planning Commission. The other item I raised at the Planning Commission was the amount of fill dirt that would need to be brought in. And I, at the time, ballpark 2,000 semi-truckloads. And the developer who was online at the time poo-pooed that and said, oh, no, it won't even be 500. Well, 500 is still a lot. But I went up and measured the size of the existing dry pond, and to just fill that pond would be over 500 truckloads, let alone raising the grade to 32nd Avenue where Hillside Drive is supposed to come in, which is 10 feet below 32nd. So, we're right back to talking 2,000 truckloads. They said it would be no more than 10 truckloads a day. So do the math. I mean, 200 days of trucks coming up 32nd Avenue. People tonight have raised the issue of traffic. My goodness, talk about traffic. So those are the 2 issues that I would like to raise. And as a third issue, Megan just mentioned turning it into a dog park. Well, it has been turned into a dog park because there's no gate and it's not posted. So I see a number of people back there exercising their dogs off leash. So I will leave it there and hope you consider those options.
Thank you very much, Mr. Koniz. Ms. Scheck, our next speaker.
Mayor, we have Suzanne with Freyer on deck.
Okay.
Hi, good evening, City Council. My name is Suzanne Chewett. Hi, Allie. I live at 3330 Parfait Street, right across from Prospect Valley Elementary School. I would agree with almost everybody else's concerns, and I'll save the council's time and not reiterate all of those. A couple of things I would like to emphasize, however. So I have watched the Quail Street as well as the Robb Street from Workshop go up. They are beautiful homes. We have had the conversation numerous times about the drainage that comes from there. Mr. Cutler even said we are not a full service organization. Here's my concern. And I brought this up when they were talking about redeveloping this parcel for a whole bunch of townhomes. We are piecemealing the wetlands across Wheatridge. So if you go past, so the new development that went up across the street from Prospect Valley Elementary School to the west, there was a beautiful wetlands there between that piece of property and some very large horse properties that actually crosses the ditch that's there. I believe that's the end of Sim Street. It goes to the ends of Sim. So literally there was a wetland that went from a ditch and a whole bunch of wetlands that went from basically Prospect Valley Elementary School down behind all of their, behind Five Fridges Farms and everything else. The feeder for that wetland was the Robb Street development and also the Quail Street development. Both of those wetlands have been filled in. If you take that and you draw if you take it from that point and you draw a southeast line, you end up at Crown Hill Park. So all of the animals that are in that area, all of the coyotes that we love to hear at night yipping in the middle at 1 o'clock in the morning coming through, that is their drainage and that is what they follow. There's a number of animals that go up and through the bird sanctuary. So you're talking about all of these, and again, they may not be protected, but we're wiping them out. And because we're doing this piecemeal and we're only looking at it development by development rather than taking the big picture, we're slowly removing all of the beauty of the wetlands that we enjoy here in Wheatridge. Because we are not full service, I don't know how much Jeffco pays attention to it. It's not an Army Corps of Engineers protected wetland, but you have the whole wetland that is on the corner of 35th and Parfait. That is part of Tom Abbott's property. And that's pretty, and that's been subdivided, but that area has been preserved. I would urge the council to, as we're going through parcel by parcel and looking at these developments, to take a bigger picture of what is happening with all of these wetlands in the areas that we love and enjoy here. The other thing, talking about Ms. Mascarena's comments about numerous construction vehicles, I have myself called numerous times to the Wheatridge Police Department because we've had construction vehicles come flying up Parfait Street because they don't want to go all the way to Kipling and down and around, and their GPS sends them up Parfait Street through a school zone. And they have broken the right-of-ways that are along Parfait because we do not have speed bumps. They chose Parfait rather than Nelson to come up. And so again, if they are considering this with Workshop, we've had issues with both Workshop and the developers who did the Quail, the larger houses on Quail there. The other thing that I would love to reiterate is I don't think anybody has brought this up, which was the discussions and the concerns having to do with numerous homes going into that area. Again, when they were talking about the townhomes, the other issue that was brought up had to do with Consolidated Mutual Water, that the water pressure in that area and the water pressure in my home, which is all the way downstream from there, downhill from there, is nominal. We've had all kinds of issues with maintaining water pressure and water supply. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schuett. Ms. Scheck, our next speaker.
Thanks, Mayor. We have Freyer with Steve on deck.
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, hello. My name is Dan Freyer, F-R-A-Y-R-E, and I recently bought the property at 3351 Kipling, which is just north of the ditch there off of Kipling. And I was looking at or hearing this evening that the plan is to add a sidewalk as part of this project coming down on the west side of Kipling, so that they could have access into these new properties. And there is no sidewalk there right now, and there's no sidewalk in front of my property either. I'm wondering, am I going to be forced to put in a sidewalk as part of this project? Should it go through? Or how's that going to happen? Because there is a bit of sidewalk just north of me where the church is at, but that's where it stops. I'm just curious about that. That's all.
I don't believe we have that answer at this time, Mr. Freyer.
All right, that's a concern I have, right? Am I going to be forced to put in a sidewalk in front of my house and a driveway?
We'll see if staff can answer that when we get back to responding to the council
Thank you.
questions. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Ms. Scheck?
Thank you, Mayor. We have Steve with CIRMA on deck. Steve Merritt.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can.
Thank you. Thank you, City Council members. Our address is 10395 West 33rd Avenue. And I would just like to reiterate the concerns. I want to thank Suzanne Schuett for coming in with some experience with development in her neighborhood near Prospect Elementary. That really helps us and gives us a good synopsis of where we're moving as a city, and Stan Konis mentioning our brand as Tree City USA. And we would like more input and clarification on the loss of the trees along the Rocky Mountain Ditch. And yes, where we're moving as a city, some kind of vision for what we're doing to keep our uniqueness intact. We do have still some open spaces. They're being lost very quickly. And I know that is pressure on the city council members to look at this from a long-term viewpoint, but the trees along the ditch and anything we can do to keep open space while still allowing property owners to develop their land, and of course safety. And just as Melody Mascarenas brought up, the speed of 32nd, that needs to be addressed. And we had a neighbor down the street on 33rd Avenue hit a promising bicycle racer. I'm sure he ended his career, and it's just the clearance. He was turning down Miller Street to go to 33rd Avenue. The bicyclist was coming down 32nd Avenue, and he said he didn't even see the bicyclist, and they do move at speed down that street. So there's going to have to be some remediation done there, and then just more clarification on this ditch and what Stan Konis said. Of course, the ditch people are going to want to remove those trees. They always have, and it results in more water, but it also potentially degrades our situation in our neighborhood here. A lot of raptors in those cottonwoods. We love seeing them and hearing them, and much appreciated for all your time and hard work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Merritt. Ms. Scheck?
We have CIRMA, and then Mayor, we have no other hands up, but we do have a caller.
Okay.
Good evening. My name is CIRMA Quinones. The last name is Quinones, and I live at 10270 West 33rd Avenue. Thank you so much for this opportunity to speak tonight. I did make a comment on mic today, but I just wanted to make sure that my voice was heard. And I wanted to express that after the Planning Commission meeting several weeks back, many of us were left with a lot of concerns regarding the construction plans. One of the concerns that I do have is that there is no plan for retention wall or brick wall on the north side of the lots. The area is it's like notorious for erosion, and not having a wall there adds a potential for additional mitigation to take place in the ditch. So a retention wall can provide protection to the ditch, in addition to provide noise reduction for those of us residents who are on the north side of the ditch easement. Everybody's talked about the cottonwoods tonight, so I will cut this one short. The whole comment of the cottonwoods being cut down really was a little bit surprising, because that has nothing to do with the construction of the lot above it. It's an easement, and technically it's behind the area that's supposed to be developed, or north of it. And most of us actually own that land. So I'm a little curious as to why is it that with this easement, we're wanting to get rid of the cottonwoods? From what I can tell, there's more negative impacts than there are positive impacts. There's the disturbing of the wildlife refuge. That's an area, as Steve mentioned, there's raptors, we have coyotes, we have foxes, we have all kinds of wildlife in the area. It actually removes the privacy from those of us on 33rd Avenue, and it increases the risk of water damage to the homes on the north side. We have all retrofitted our properties with French drains in order to have the current flow of water that has been historically in the ditch. We've mitigated for that. So removing those cottonwoods would definitely affect us in the future, because we don't have these cottonwoods that are supposed to take up so much water. At that time, I'm just a little curious as to what is it we're planning on doing. The only positive aspect of that I see is that the developer and the new property owners are going to have a great view. So I'm just trying to see where the impact to the investment is going to be taking place from here. Also in lot number 5 in the draft that was provided to us, which was different from the one that was in the video tonight. It does appear that the lot lines are coming, the property lines are coming across the ditch all the way into the property that we actually own, despite the fact that it's an easement, it's still our property. So I am concerned without a retention wall, how are we going to support a home in that tiny lot that is known for erosion? So frankly, it's not that I'm opposed to the development taking place in the area. It's how we're developing the area. Are we trying to squeeze too many homes into this property? And what is going to be the impact to the rest of us? Because we have invested in Wheatridge, we have already invested in the community, and we are part of this community, and we plan on staying in this community. And I'm just a little curious as to what the city is going to do to keep us as a part of the community that we have been a part of. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Quinones. Ms. Scheck, do we have any more callers on the Zoom format?
Those are all the hands that were up, Mayor.
Okay, but you did say we had a telephone caller who would like to speak?
I don't know if they'd like to speak, but I just wanted to note there is at least one person that won't have the ability to put their hand up.
Okay, so it looks like we've got all of the hands of the people that raised their hands in the Zoom format. If you're on the telephone and would like to speak on this item, if you would please unmute yourself and indicate that you'd like to speak, I'm happy to recognize you. All right, I will, one more call for public comment on this item. If you would like to speak from the public on this item and have not had a chance to speak, you may speak now. If you'd speak up, I'm happy to have you talk with us. Okay, I don't hear any more comments from the public, so we will close our public comment on this item, and we will go to questions from council of the staff or the applicant. Ms. Hoppy.
Mr. Mayor, quickly.
Oh, yes, sir, Mr. Goff.
It's like the caller unmuted themselves.
Okay. Do we have someone from the public who would like to speak on this item, who has not spoken?
Nope, they muted themselves again, sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Thank you for checking with me, and we will go now to Ms. Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have quite a few questions, so I'll just ask two and then give other people opportunities. But this is a subdivision. It's a subdivision plat. That's a technical document. The review is ministerial action. So when the plat complies with the requirements, can staff maybe just give us a real quick subdivision technical document and it complies with requirements versus rezoning, because we're not rezoning this property. So the number of units that are in it are a use by right number of units. So can staff just kind of go through just real quick, the two differences between those two things, please?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Ms. Hoppy. A subdivision plat is considered a ministerial review, which means that it's as you note, largely a technical review. So from a platting standpoint, we're looking mostly at the adequacy of the lots in terms of, at a baseline, meeting the minimum lot size requirements, meeting the minimum lot width requirements. Scott noted in his summary that there are, I think, 2 flag lots that meet the minimum requirements for flag lots in our regulations. We look at the adequacy of easements to provide utilities. We look at the adequacy of the design of the street and the adequacy of the things like stormwater detention. Those are kind of the fundamental things that we look at as part of the subdivision plat review process. We do take a hard look, in addition to just meeting the minimum lot size requirements, at making sure that the lots will be developable, both in terms of grade and both in terms of kind of buildable area, because there are some irregular lots in this subdivision, as has been noted, and we'd certainly fully acknowledge. And I know Scott and the team have been taking a hard look at that as part of this process. We're just in the early stages of taking the next step, which would be to review the civil engineering documents to make sure that some of the various, important issues that have been raised by some of the commenters from the public regarding erosion and drainage and developability and the need for retaining walls, all those things will continue to be evaluated as part of the ongoing review of the civil engineering documents as well. So certainly duly note those comments, and I think we can continue to work through those as well. So that's kind of where we are at in terms of our review. We have taken a hard look, as I said, at the kind of developability of these lots, because it's a challenging site, as noted by Scott, as much as 40 feet of grade transition across the site. And, I think we're pleased that the site is moving forward under the R1 zoning as a single family subdivision, as we've, over the years entertained on some level or another various potential to rezone the property, which this property owner is not proposing to do. They are indeed proposing to develop it under the R1 zoning, which it's been zoned for, I think, the full time that it's been within the city of Wheatridge.
Thank you. And just real quickly, if it were a rezoning, then we would actually be looking at different documents. They would have more of an idea of what we would like to build, but we are requesting permission to rezone it to build that. And this is already in R1, so therefore we don't have to look at a rezone because it's a use by right for the zoning that it already has, correct?
Correct. If it were a rezone, we'd be taking a harder look at, individualized look at grading for individual lots, and, potentially looking at, architecture in more detail if they were looking at a planned residential rezoning by way of example.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stites and then Ms. Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also have a few questions, but I'm not sure if now would be the right time to ask them then. So will this be coming back before council at all before it's built out, or is this just today we vote to plat it and then it kind of moves forward administratively from here?
Yeah, the plat is really the final city council action. The next thing that we would be doing at a staff level would be continuing our review of the civil plan documents. We'd be negotiating terms of the subdivision improvement agreement, which may be an opportunity to, further address some of the concerns that have been raised, and then building permits. So it's really recordation of a subdivision plat, recordation of a subdivision improvement agreement, and then site-by-site issuance of building permit plans after we've approved civil plans for construction of the public improvements.
Okay. I think there are a lot of really good things about this proposal. I like that it doesn't have to change zoning. But I also, and I like that the entrance comes off on 32nd rather than on Kipling. So I do understand where the neighbors are coming from here, and they're very concerned with and all the things that it sounds like still kind of need to be worked out with the grading and some of the things. Can you explain a couple of things? As far as traffic goes, I think we all kind of know 32nd and Kipling to be a pretty rough intersection, especially in the wintertime. And I know when I was doing my driver's test, one of the first places they took you was 32nd and Kipling. So to make sure you can work the clutch and all that stuff up there. So as we kind of go through here, you said that there was no need for a deceleration lane on 32nd. Is there a plan to do a traffic study, or has there been any traffic studies or anything like that done in that area?
I know we have Mark Westberg on the call from our engineering division, and I think he could probably best speak to what we've asked for from the applicant in terms of traffic analysis and where we've landed in terms of required improvements.
Yeah, so this subdivision actually isn't big enough to warrant a traffic study. Our traffic study cutoff is at 50 cars in the peak hour. And with 14 houses, they're going to have more, like half that during the peak hour. So they weren't even close to requiring that. So we did not require a traffic analysis. And the deceleration lane, for the same reason, there's just not enough traffic coming in and out of this. And I live in a subdivision on 32nd also that's got 22 houses, so 50% more than this subdivision is doing. And I'm just west of Wadsworth, so very similar situation to this one. And quite frankly, there's just never really been an issue with people turning in and out. We've got the bike lane here. It's almost exactly the same situation. So just don't see a need for a deceleration lane to allow the cars to get in here. There's just not going to be enough traffic to warrant that.
We've spent a lot of time and money the last few years trying to turn 32nd into a strong bike corridor. Is there any concern? I know there was some concern from the neighbors, but is there concern from staff as far as that bike lane and people turning right and left out of there?
I think our hope is that as people continue to use this as a bike route and as people move in and live there, they'll be more cognizant and be more aware of the bikes. There are a lot of bikes on 32nd. I know I see them all the time at my subdivision. So it's just a matter of, when you're looking to pull in or off the street, you just need to not just look for cars, but look for bikes too, and look for pedestrians on the sidewalk that might be crossing driveways and streets and all those things. So it's just a matter of, we just need people to be more aware as drivers to be watching for those kind of things.
Okay. Last question, I'll let somebody else jump in there. Last year when I was campaigning, I had the opportunity, and I think Steve Kirkpatrick was with me that day. We were up through those neighborhoods in there and standing on, I think, Michelle's driveway and a few of the other neighbors around there on 33rd and around in there. Is there any consideration to keeping the cottonwood trees or some sort of privacy fence, anything going up there to help those neighbors protect their privacy in their backyard from what's going to be houses going up? You'll be able to see into their houses from their front yard. So is there any consideration of privacy fences or anything like that?
Commissioner Stites, I can speak to that. The Rocky Mountain Ditch, we referred the application to the Rocky Mountain Ditch, and they are requesting removal of the cottonwood trees on the south side of the ditch. There are no effects to the north side of the ditch. And there was a comment from the public about whether the property line shown on the plat was actually like north of the ditch. What's shown on the map is actually the center line of the ditch, and then the 30-foot easement is being requested south of the center line. So anything that Rocky Mountain Ditch is requesting is happening south of the ditch. But yeah, they have requested to remove the trees. That's not something the city can really intervene in. They're a referral agency, they have water rights over the ditch, and they can request that as they're the easement holder.
Okay. Sorry, I know I said one more, no more questions, but I'm gonna ask one more since I have you. The sidewalks on Kipling, I know that those are being widened where the property is, but we had a resident, Dan, who I think his name is Dan. Yeah, it was Dan. Talked about his sidewalks on 32nd. Is that something he's going to have to be forced to improve now? And I think I know the answer to that question because there's also a property at 32nd and Kipling, which is the bigger, they're not being required right now, it sounds like, to widen their sidewalks because they're not doing the work. Has there been any talks with them to try to widen them at the same time, or is that all just up to them?
I can start with this one and then maybe let others chime in. So for that particular property owner, no, there's not going to be any impacts to their property at this time. If that property redeveloped in the future, then they would likely be required to build a sidewalk along there, but not as part of this development. And that property is actually along Kipling Street. So to clarify, there will be a 6-foot detached sidewalk along the Kipling Street frontage. And then it narrows to a 5.5-foot sidewalk down to the intersection at 32nd and Kipling. So there will actually be a sidewalk all the way from 32nd to the Rocky Mountain Ditch on Kipling Street, where there is none today. And then on 32nd Avenue, the existing 4-foot sidewalk along the property is being widened to 6 feet. So it's getting 2 feet wider. There is kind of a pinch point along that existing property at 10001 West 32nd Avenue. That's not part of this project, and so they're not required to widen the sidewalk. If that property ever redeveloped, they would then have to match what's along Kipling or along 32nd Street to the west.
So nobody's actually asked them if that's something they might want to do just along with this project while it's going on?
I don't believe so, and that's typically not a requirement for an adjacent property owner to also upgrade their sidewalk, and usually they would say no if the city asked them to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've got Ms. Weaver and then Ms. Hoppy.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Scott, for clarifying on the ditch piece. I'm going to ask a few more questions and have you clarify a little bit more on that. I know I really feel for everyone wanting the cottonwoods to stay. I do want to say out loud, though, that this is both an agricultural ditch, which means that it's for water delivery, and cottonwoods take a lot of water. So when a ditch company says that they need to do improvements, typically that means taking the things out that are taking the water. And so I just wanted to clarify some of that language. Scott, could you talk a little bit about when an owner has property that goes up to a ditch, and then I have a few more questions after that, but just how that works as far as if an owner doesn't have rights to those ditch, but they own the trees up to the center line, just what is, so it sounds like you're saying that the south side of the property, that owner can remove the cottonwoods, but if the owner on the north side owns the side of the ditch that has the cottonwoods, those cottonwoods can stay. Is that correct?
I'm not sure what the ditch company is requiring or if there's any work that's being required on the north side, but to my knowledge, everything that they're requesting is on the south side of the ditch. And I saw Nathan just unmuted himself, so he might have more clarity.
Nathan, would you mind talking about that just so people understand the nature of what they can and can't sort of do or request with the ditch company and water rights and things like that?
Right, yeah, so I'm Nathan Loddick, by the way. I'm a civil engineer and part of the development team for this project. So as a part of this approval process, we had to refer out to the ditch company, as Scott mentioned, and just like any other agency, they had to basically give an okay, say, hey, if you do this, this, and this, we're gonna okay your proposal for development. So what the ditch wanted us to do is on the south side of the ditch, so from the center line to the south, only affecting our property, was to grade back the slope that is exceeding their slope requirements in many locations back to a 3-to-1 slope, and to remove the cottonwood trees that, like you said, they do take up a lot of water, I think up to 1,000 gallons a day. The ditch mentioned to us when we were walking the site, and B, if they ever do die or fall over, you know, they can cause additional bank erosion and other problems with the ditch. But any tree to the north of that center line on the other people's property adjacent to us will not be touched, and is not a requirement for us to do anything to as part of this development.
Okay. Thank you for that answer. And one more question, Scott, about well, I've got two more questions. If a property owner had a tree that other owners wanted removed or not removed, is it the decision of the property owner about that tree? Just
Sorry,
take the ditch out of the story for a second.
just to be removed on the north side of the ditch, you're saying?
No, just
anywhere?
if I had trees that I wanted to remove, but my neighbors didn't want me to remove them, what is my right as the property owner?
As a private property owner, if you have a tree that's entirely on your property, you have the right to remove it.
Okay.
Just full stop.
And so likewise, the ditch company has a right to improve, and I understand that that's problematic, but improve the ditch by requesting that the trees come down, correct?
They do, and it's a little bit different because the ditch doesn't own the land, but they do have an easement which grants them rights to that property.
Right, to not lose the water. Okay, I just, thank you for clarifying that. My main concern about the property lines, and I've been looking at this a lot of the afternoon, but on the ditch, the Rocky Mountain ditch on either side of this property actually has its own separate boundary lines, and it's I'm looking on the county boundary site, the Aspen the ARC mapping system that shows the parcels. Why is it not designated as a separate parcel on this property where it is on either side of it? There seems to be and my second question of that is, how is the property counted as far as the footage with that ditch and the easement? Because I know that it's not buildable. And just, can you talk about the difference? Because the parcels on either side of it don't go to the center line of the ditch. They stop at the easement. Literally, there's a boundary.
Sure, that's a good question. Yeah, so let me actually start with your second question, and then I might actually turn it over to Mark or someone else to answer the first one. For any time there's an easement, whether it's a Rocky Mountain ditch easement or a utility easement, those are always counted within the lot area. So even though they're not buildable, they're still to the benefit of that private property owner to be used as yard space. Mm-hmm. And this one, the Rocky Mountain ditch, just so happens to be in the rear setback. And a lot of that wouldn't be buildable anyway, just because for the R1 zone district, there's a 15-foot rear setback requirement. So it's basically, in lieu of a 15-foot setback, this is requiring a 30-foot setback from that property line, because you can't build within an easement, whether it's a utility easement or a drainage easement or anything like that. As for your first question, I'll start. So the Rocky Mountain ditch has a lot of, it goes through the entire city,
right?
And it's pretty haphazard how it's platted. Many properties do go to the center line. There are kind of orphan parcels that are still owned by either the Rocky Mountain Ditch Company or just are privately held that are kind of along the ditch. But in the case of this subdivision, the actual subdivision to the north, the Overlook Estate subdivision, their plat that was done in the 1950s actually says that those homes' property lines goes to the center line of the ditch as well. And so the center line of the ditch is the property line for both the Overlook Estates and this subdivision. There's not another parcel before you get then to the Overlook Estates.
And so that's why the north side can keep the trees up to the center line of the ditch.
Right, and the Rocky Mountain Ditch may have their own easement over those properties. And if you look at an aerial view, you can actually see the fence lines of all of those properties on 33rd Avenue are about 15 to 20 feet back from the center line of the ditch. And that's likely because there's some sort of easement, whether it's a platted easement or a prescriptive easement. The Rocky Mountain Ditch just requested those fences be moved back. That's exactly why.
Okay, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Ms. Hoppy is our next speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have some quick questions about in the future of this property, should it be built. What is kind of the build plan? Is it something where you will be building a show home and then building after that, or is it something where you're going to go in and kind of bang all the homes out and then open them up, you know, for sale? Is it going to be phased? And the reason why I ask this question is because that has an effect on the construction traffic, how heavy it'll be, how light it'll be, if it'll be, you know, longer or shorter. And then my only one other thing that I wanted to ask is if there were any way that we could put on the edge of the property signage for the bikers that maybe say hidden drive or you know, driveways on 32nd, right as they get the because it's at the top of the hill. There's no bike lane for a while. I drive that street 4 or 5 times a day. There's no bike lane for just a little tiny bit, and then a bike lane happens. So I know drivers are very cautious as they come straight through that intersection at the top of the hill. Then as it starts going down, there's a bike lane. So bikers start, you know, they get in their lane and they start going fast. So if there was some sort of signage that could say, you know, bikers watch out for driveways on 32nd, or there's a hidden driver or something like that. So those are my last 2 questions. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll start with the first one. There is kind of a phased development plan. We don't know exactly the amount that'll go at a time, but we do know that the development will start at lots 1 and 2 because they have the least amount of improvements that need to be made since they're going to be accessed off of 32nd Avenue. And the rest of the lots will probably, you know, I'm assuming there may be 3 going at a time, but it'll kind of depend on how well the lots sell. I think the intention is to do mostly custom home builds in this neighborhood, so not a lot of spec development or plans just to do them all at once and have them all at sale at once. Each one of these houses is going to be unique to the lot it's on, given the unique shape and terrain of each individual lot. And so that'll take a lot of effort, you know, in architectural design and going back into Wheatridge and making sure everything meets their code requirements. And I know a lot of people brought up construction traffic and the development to the west. The site's quite a bit larger, and it's, you know, infill development in its nature doesn't provide a lot of space around it to work in. So there are a lot of cars that are parked on the streets and may at times during deliveries and other things be blocking driveways. You know, a lot of this development is going to be taking place internal to the site. A lot of truck traffic will, you know, turn off the road, be internal to the site, be plenty of spacing for parking on there. And then during construction of the homes, I'm sure a lot of the contractors will be parking on Hillside Drive, which wouldn't affect, you know, any of the surrounding neighborhoods. So hopefully that's a lot less of an issue here. And then, you know, we'd be happy to place any signing that the city would think would be helpful to, you know, help with the safety of pedestrians and bicyclists. I would note that with the connection of the sidewalk from Kipling to the cul-de-sac, that a lot of pedestrians and bicyclists will have the opportunity to avoid that intersection entirely and cut through the sidewalks and the street of the site and then pop back out on 32nd. And so hopefully that would reduce a lot of, you know, incidents on that hard corner of 32nd and Kipling as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Additional questions from council? Mr. Urban.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As far as the cul-de-sac itself, what is the total length from the center line of 32nd Avenue to the center of the bulb?
It is right around 750 feet, but just less than the maximum length allowed per the code for the length of a cul-de-sac street.
So the total square footage of Hillside Drive indicates it's like 43,141 feet, and the right-of-way for Hillside Drive is 53 feet. That would come to about 813 in length, and then if you take off the 48-foot radius, that would be at 765, not including the length from the edge of Hillside Drive to the center line of 32nd Avenue. So it seems like it's rather close. It seems like it's almost over that requirement. Do we have an exact number?
I can find it for you right now. 1 second. I think the area is a little bit over because they don't consider that the area after the center line of the bulb, it doesn't go to the end of the flow line of the bulb. The length requirement stops right there at the center of the bulb. So you'd have all that additional area on the other side.
And it's 0.9 or 9391 to 9396. Those are the.
Sorry, what was that? It was a little bit muffled.
Those anchor points, or whatever you call the triangle. I don't know if that.
The monuments.
At all.
Survey monuments.
Yeah, monument.
Yeah, I'm looking at. I have my construction plans open. I can get the exact or the stationing where the flow line starts.
Mr. Urban, while he's doing that, this is Ken. Just, it's a good question, and one that I know we spent a lot of time looking at early on in the process. So, you know, we were very focused on getting that that number right. So thanks for asking the question. And of course, a big reason for that requirement in the code is related to fire safety. And certainly the fire district has taken a hard look at this and does not have any objections with the current design.
Well, it's not fire department's ordinance, it's ours, so that's why I'm curious.
So it's 744.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Hulteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of follow-up questions from comments provided by the public. One of the speakers mentioned a desire to have it become a park. Am I remembering correctly that's something we looked at in the past when other proposals were coming forward? Is that something the city's actually taken a look at?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, we don't own it, so it would be hard for the city to turn it into a park unless the city wants to purchase it.
Great, thank you. And then, so with the new development proposals, are there going to be requirements for new trees to be planted when the new houses go up?
Yes, there are. So every single family lot is required to plant one tree in the front setback for every 70 feet of lot frontage. So some of these lots that are 150 feet wide might have 3 trees that are being planted. There's also a requirement that the entire front yard is landscaped, and then 25% of the total lot. And then along both 32nd Avenue and Kipling Street, the city is requiring street trees to be planted at an interval, I think, of every 30 or 40 feet. So there's going to be a lot of new trees both along Kipling Street in the amenity zone, but also along 32nd Avenue behind the sidewalk.
Okay, great. So we're going to see 20, 30 some odd new trees come in as part of this development.
Yes, if not more. And there will actually also be some planted along Hillside Drive, kind of where it gets closest to the ditch on the north side of Hillside Drive. So there will be trees in every single family lot. There will be trees along both frontages of the main streets as well.
Okay, great. And is putting in, requiring the landscaping in the front, will that help with any of the stabilization and water management through the site? And erosion?
Sorry,
I don't
low with unmuting. You know, we are only requiring to landscape the front, but they're required to stabilize the entire site as they do their construction. They've got to have erosion control stuff in place. They'll have a stormwater management plan. This site's over an acre, so it'll be regulated by both us and the state. There's also a plan to have drainage along the backs of the lot. So on the south side of the ditch to take all the drainage to Kipling. So whatever water flows off this site today, which isn't a lot because it's a big giant thing of grass, will all be directed up towards that new pond at Kipling Street at the northeast corner of the property. So there won't be any water coming off this site unless we get a ginormous event. There won't be any water coming off of this site during normal rainfalls at all into the ditch anymore. If anything, this might dry things up a tad, but the Rocky flows water a lot of times. So the groundwater issues and the drainage issues that are happening below the ditch are because of the ditch, not because of what this site is doing. And if anything, what they're doing in the site will improve that situation, not make it worse.
Okay, great, thank you. And then one last question. There were a couple comments around putting up some sort of privacy wall or fence along the north side. Is that something that there's a precedence for, and or is anything higher than 6 feet even allowed within the R1 zoning?
6 feet is the maximum height for fences, and that's citywide. That's not just R1. Citywide is a 6 foot maximum. For those lots along the ditch, believe Nathan said it at the Planning Commission meeting, it's up to the individual property owners if they want to build a fence along their northern property lines. There are going to be fences along Kipling Street, though, a 6 foot fence along the entire length.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I have Mr. Stites next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Holteen got my question about the water answered. My last question is about some of the protections that the neighbors have while construction is going on. I know it's been hit a few times, but the city has rules already in place regarding construction. Can you guys maybe go into that? I'm not sure who the best person would be, but I think Patrick outlined them a few for me in an email earlier this week. I'd just like the citizens to hear those as well.
Sure, and I think Ken was going to double check today to make sure we had all that right. So Ken.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Patrick, and thanks for the question, Mr. Stites. Generally, for building permits, the hours are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., 7 days a week. For construction in the right-of-way, so when they're doing their street improvements, the hours are actually a little somewhat more limited than that, and there's more discretion for the Public Works Director to limit hours of construction for right-of-way improvements to limit the impacts on rush hour traffic. And they're also generally not allowed on the weekends unless an exemption is granted. So it's duly noted that this is a infill project of some significance. So I think we can give some real thought to that as we negotiate the terms of the subdivision improvement agreement, and make sure that there's a real clear game plan that we understand, that the contractor understands, and that the community in the area understands as well.
And I could also add that as a part of the stormwater management plan, there'll need to be a staging area on site for the employees to park and those kind of things. No one's going to park on 32nd Avenue. They'll get ticketed and towed very quickly if they start doing that kind of nonsense. And certainly no one in their right mind would park on Kipling Street, but same thing. So this site's big enough. It's over an acre. It's got several lots. There will be a staging area on site for the employees to park that are working on it. And I'm sure as the individual houses go up, they're all gonna be parking, along the new street to be close to those houses with their tools and everything else. So certainly if it becomes an issue with workers parking on the south side of 32nd and then trying to hike across or something, we can try to address that. But as Ken noted, we can deal with a lot of that in the stormwater master plan and also in the SIA.
Thank you. I don't see any more hands raised. Before I close the public hearing, Ms. Hutchinson, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I've heard a lot of people speak about the value of the trees, and also there's consideration about shade and what trees do for the climate. I would just make a recommendation that when trees are planted in these yards, that the developer uses diversity, not planting every single same tree in the subdivision, which I've seen before, because like we have with ash trees now, if we have disease, then it wipes out all the trees. So give homeowners a idea of trees to be able to select, and CSU has a list of trees, not just, bring a whole truckload of the same kind of tree to the area. And I think that would be very good for the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Hoppy, did you have your hand up? Okay, thank you very much. Before I close the public hearing and ask for motion, are there any more questions that the council has of the staff or the applicant? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing, and Ms. Weaver, may I have a motion on agenda item number 2?
You may. I move to approve resolution number 49-2020, a resolution approving a major subdivision plat on property zoned residential 1 and located at the northwest corner of West 32nd Avenue and Kipling Street for the following reasons. Number 1, the City Council has conducted a proper public hearing that meets all public notice requirements as required by Section 26-109 and 26407 of the Code of Laws. Number 2, the requested subdivision has been reviewed by the Planning Commission, which has forwarded its recommendation of approval. The subdivision plat has been found in compliance with Article 4 of the Chapter 26 Code of Laws. Number 4, all agencies can provide services to the property with improvements installed at the developer's expense. And with the following conditions: number 1, the applicant shall pay the required fees in lieu of parkland dedication at the time of building permit for each individual lot. Number 2, the developer shall enter into a subdivision improvement agreement and a lot sale restriction covenant agreement prior to recordation of the subdivision plat. And 3, prior to issuance of building permits, the developer shall provide owner association covenants for review by staff.
Is there a second? I'm sorry, who had this? Who had the second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Hoppy. Is there discussion on the motion? Seeing none, will all those in favor of the motion please raise your hand, and will the clerk please record the votes?
Mr. Mayor, the motion has passed unanimously.
Okay, thank you very much. It is now just about 9 o'clock. We're going to take about a 8 or 9 minute break. We'll be back about 8 minutes after the hour. So we'll take a short break now. Thank you. In our meeting, we are on agenda item number 3. Ms. Dozman, would you please introduce this item?
Yes, this is Council Bill number 19-2020, an ordinance on first reading, approving the rezoning of property located at the southeast corner of West I-70 Frontage Road North and Ward Road from Agricultural 2 to Planned Mixed-Use Development with an outline development plan, case number WZ-19-03/Ward Road Pond. So at issue, the applicant is requesting approval of a zone change from agricultural 2 to planned mixed-use development with an ODP located at the southeast corner of I-70 Frontage Road North and Ward Road. The zone change will allow for a variety of commercial, residential, and recreational uses on the property.
Thank you very much. This is an ordinance on first reading to set the time, date, and location for a public hearing on this item. Ms. Dozman, may I have a motion on this, please?
Yes. I move to approve Council Bill number 19-2020, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at the southwest. Oh, sorry. I don't think I'm down far enough. Maybe.
Just before the bill.
Right, so it is, so I move to approve Council Bill number 19-2020, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at the southeast corner of West I-70 Frontage Road North and Ward Road from Agricultural 2 to planned mixed-use development with an outline development plan on first reading for the sole purpose of ordering it published for a public hearing set for November 9th, 2020 at 7 p.m. as a virtual meeting, and if adopted, that it take effect 15 days after final publication.
Second. Motion and a second by Mr. Stites. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand, and will the clerk please record the votes?
Mr. Mayor, the motion has passed 8-0.
Thank you very much. We will move to agenda item number 4. Ms. Weaver, would you please introduce this item?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a motion to approve appointment to a let me try that again. A motion to approve appointment to a City Council District 3 vacancy on the Cultural Commission. Due to recent resignation in City Council District 3, a seat on the Cultural Commission is vacant. The term of this position ends March 2nd, 2023.
And Ms. Weaver, are you and your counselor from District 3 have a motion for this?
We do. Shall I proceed with the motion?
If you would please provide a motion.
Okay. I move to appoint Lisa Streisfeld, I think that's how I pronounced her name, Streisfeld of 2690 Oak Street in District 3.
Second. There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hands, and will the clerk please record the votes?
Mr. Mayor, the motion is passed unanimously.
Thank you very much. We will go to agenda item number 5. Ms. Hulteen, would you please introduce this item?
Resolution number 50/2020, a resolution concerning the acquisition and acceptance of 9 properties on Wadsworth Boulevard for the purpose of constructing, installing, maintaining, and using public improvements for improving Wadsworth Boulevard by either negotiation and voluntary purchase, or, if necessary, through the utilization of the city's power of eminent domain, and authorizing such action as necessary to accomplish such purposes. At issue, the proposed improvements to Wadsworth Boulevard require that additional right-of-way be purchased to allow for the construction of public improvements. In order to facilitate the acquisition of right-of-way from 9 properties along Wadsworth Boulevard that have stalled in negotiations, the authority to use the city's power of eminent domain is being requested.
Thank you very much. This is a resolution. Mr. Goff, do we have a presentation on this item?
We do. We have both Ken Johnstone and Mark Westbrook here from Community Development. I'm not sure who's going to take the lead to start. Looks like Ken may.
Okay, Mr. Johnstone, please continue.
Thank you, Mayor. We briefed council on this topic relative to the Wadsworth Improvement Project back on September 21st. We've got a brief update, and so I'll turn it over to Mark Westberg, Project Manager for the Wadsworth Improvement Project, to just go through a couple slides on PowerPoint to get you up to speed. So I'll turn it over to Mark, please.
You're still on mute.
Thanks.
There you go.
You think we'll say that when we start meeting in person again, that we're still on?
You know, we can only hope.
Okay, can you guys see the presentation?
Yes, sir, we can.
And are the slides advancing?
Not yet. Yes, they
Okay.
are.
So just 3 weeks ago, we gave the council a status on where we were, and this is what that status was: that we had 3 full acquisitions, 62 partial acquisitions, and that we had 11 properties total that we were concerned about at that time, in one form or another. We've made a fair amount of progress in the last 3 weeks. One of our worried properties that was a full acquisition, we've moved to promising just today. We've decided to accept the property owner's last offer to us, counter offer to us. And so we just have a few details to work out on conditions and things, but we've moved that one to a promising category. So that one's no longer on the list. We've actually got 41 properties in the partial acquisition list that we've now got deals on. One of those happened at 4:53 this afternoon. So that number is hot off the presses, if you will. We've got 15 properties we're still working on. We've got 10 that are promising, 3 that we're kind of early, can't tell, but they seem to be progressing towards promising. We still have 2 offers to make yet. We're having a little bit of difficulty getting some stuff out of CDOT so we can make our last 2 offers. But we're working with them on that. And right now we've got only 6 properties instead of 11 properties that we're now on our concerned category. So just to talk about those a little bit, 2 of those are in the worried category. We do think we're pretty close to a deal on one of them.
Mark, we lost your audio.
Okay. I'm still showing unmuted.
Still can't hear you.
I'm good with the audio here.
I can hear him.
Oh,
It's pretty unusual that people can't hear me.
it was mine. I'm sorry. It was my internet.
That's all
Okay.
right.
Thank you.
So we got 2 we're still worried about. We think we're pretty close to deal on one of those. One of those is we're still concerned with, and that property we're struggling to deal with. The owners are all attorneys, and they're just sort of like, take us to court, because that's just sort of their default position on everything. But we're still trying to work with them, but I'm still concerned about it. We'd still like to get the authority to use eminent domain if that doesn't progress significantly within the next couple of weeks. They've had plenty of time to think about this. We need to push them along. And we have 4 properties still, the same 4 properties that 3 weeks ago were at impasse. We're still at impasse. And I just wanted to share some numbers with you guys on those. We have made some progress on one, but not nearly enough. We're still over $200,000 apart on it. The total of those 4 properties is still just over $750,000, which is a lot of money. And our latest offer to them, to those 4 properties, averages 50% over what the fair market value, what our appraisers thought the properties were worth. And where we are with those is the owners still want what they've basically stopped negotiating at is 3 times what our fair market value was that was determined by our appraisers, and those numbers are average 2 times what the city's latest offer is. So we've raised our offers on average 50% based on information, their appraisers and negotiations and the things that we've done. We haven't just randomly added numbers. We've tried to be thoughtful and prudent with the city's funds on this, and CDOT's funds and the federal funds on this. And we've raised our numbers by 50% over what we had on average. And those 4 owners still want on average over 2 times what our latest offer is. So these are significant numbers. We think that the numbers are still a long ways apart on those. And we're not going to as we've done these negotiations, we're again trying to be prudent stewards of the city and federal dollars on this, and trying not to, pay folks above what is fair to everyone else on the corridor, also that we've made deals on. So we're trying to be prudent with that, and we're at an impasse still on these 4 properties. And so just a quick update on schedule. This is different than what we talked about on September 21st. We've come to you tonight to ask for authorization to use eminent domain now on just those 6 properties, not the 11 that we had before, because 5 of those have been resolved. And the DRCOG board meeting was supposed to be on October 21st. It's now been delayed until November 18th. And that's where we're going to go and explain why we have a second strike, because of the environmental delays, mostly a little bit due to COVID, and then just the right-of-way acquisition is sort of our last step that we're proceeding through, besides getting our plans finalized. We'll discuss our current status with them. We've got to show that we're committed to finish this project, and we'll include a schedule that shows that. And right now, what staff's told us is they'll give us 120 days maximum extension to get out the bid from October 1st, which basically means the end of January. And right now, we're looking to go out to bid sometime around the end of the year, either the last week of December or the first week of January. We're going to try to move that forward if we can, but right now, that's sort of the least optimistic option on our schedule. So we're getting very close to that 120-day maximum, so we just don't have a lot of time. And quite frankly, on these 4 impasse properties, time is not going to be a factor. We've had no movement on those in the last 3 weeks. So that's pretty much where we are, and we're available for questions and discussion. And I do have, let me share one more thing that I've got here. I do have the updated list that I can show you. That was one of the attachments to the council packet. I've marked out, if you guys can all see that, I've marked out the 3 properties that came off the list, but those other 6 are the ones that we are still either at an impasse or we're still concerned with, we're worried about, and we'd like to go ahead and have permission to authorize for the city to use its eminent domain power.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's see, just a minute.
And I can stop sharing the screen unless you guys are writing things down.
You can stop sharing it, Mark. I've kept the notes and I'm ready to help council with a motion when they get
there. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation. Before we go to questions from council, I would like to open the floor up to questions from the public. If you would like to speak on this agenda item number 5, you may do so at this time. We are on the Zoom format. If you would raise your hand, we will call on you and bring you into the meeting. When it's your time to speak, if you would please give us your first name and your last name and give us your address, and then you may speak. So raise your hand in the Zoom format if you wish to speak, and after we do Zoom, we will do the telephone. Ms. Scheck, are there speakers on Zoom with their hands raised?
No, Mayor.
Okay, I will go one more time. If you wish to speak, if you're a member of the public and wish to speak on this agenda item number 5, now is your opportunity. Please raise your hand in the Zoom format, or speak up if you are on the telephone, and we will recognize you and you may be able to speak.
Good evening, this is Vivian.
Okay, if you would please introduce yourself, give us your address, and then you may speak.
Vivian Voss, 6920 West 47th Place. And I did not, because I'm on the phone, I did not see the 3 that came off the list. So if sometime those 3 could be mentioned, I'd appreciate it. I am aware of eminent domain being used for the necessity of public improvements and only in that manner. But I am not so thinking that the city needs to take property beyond what CDOT's curb line would be on the enlargement of Wadsworth, the widening of Wadsworth. So I'm in disagreement on using eminent domain because I don't believe we need to do these public improvements. 9 out of 70, 4 out of 70 properties, 11 out of 70. I think the fact that anybody's holding out, whether it be for 3 times the money or just the fact that they don't want their business damaged, is a good indication that businesses along Wadsworth probably would choose not to have this happen on the city end of what they're proposing to do. And I would say some of this falls into number 6, so I'm not sure where to cut this off, but since this is strictly on eminent domain, I would like to see the city not have to do this. And what does that message send to any other businesses that might want to come into the city when they live in the fear that sooner or later, maybe their property might be taken by eminent domain? And I'll save other comments for number 6. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And to answer your question, and correct me if I'm not right on this, but it looked like A4 and A5 and A9 were the 3 that had been crossed off the list. Am I right there, Mr. Dahl?
Yes, you are. That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone else from the public who would like to speak on this matter? Ms. Scheck, do we have anyone with their hand up?
No, Mayor.
Okay, then we will close our citizen comment on this item, and we will go to questions from council. Do we have any questions before I ask for a motion? Mr. Urban.
I guess I'll hold my, it's not really a question, it's more of a statement, so I'll hold that thought after the motion's been made. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, I don't see any more questions. Ms. Hulteen, may I have a motion on this item number 5? I'm sorry, Ms. Hutchinson, you have something?
I do.
Okay, please go ahead.
All right. When I'm looking at the plans and things, I mean, this has been going on for like 5 or 6 years. And I'm wondering, when we're getting rid of banks that are on Wadsworth, and then there's businesses that are next to a bank that isn't being taken, but then there's other businesses that are set back further. Exactly how wide are you thinking Wadsworth is going to be? Because we're getting rid of a bunch of businesses and banks. I mean, even like First Bank, that isn't just a bank. There's a lot of offices in there too. So then I also see Pep Boys is on there, and Big Lots, Ross, you know, O'Reilly's. How wide are you trying to make Wadsworth Boulevard? We're not doing an expressway. And I'm just thinking it's taken 5 or 6 years to get this figured out. And then all of a sudden we have to just hurry up and jump on it and things like that. And we're not even going to do the whole project. Correct? We're only doing 2/3 of the project. We're not going to have enough money. And I mean, it's just, I don't know. We're just getting rid of a lot of businesses and things. And so I thought Wheatridge was supposed to be very concerned about having businesses. Now it's about having a road. How come we are doing Wadsworth this way when CDOT has done Wadsworth in Lakewood and Arvada, just regular? How come, is this best for our little Wheatridge here? Why are we doing this way with the continued slow intersections and things?
Ms. Hutchinson, we're not getting rid of many businesses. There's only 3 that are full takes because of either they're going to be, the widening will take a part of their parking or access to their building. So they would determine that they cannot feasibly operate. The rest of the properties are just, I know I'll let Mark speak to how wide the road is, but only 3 are full takes. Everything else is just a few feet of right of way, and the businesses can still stay and still operate.
Yeah, because when I was reading this, it says, you know, like, you know, A3, real property. Okay. I mean, that's what I think it's gonna be, is the whole thing. So, you know.
No, just the three. And we can walk through each one if you'd like. And I don't know if Mark still has that map he can bring back up, but there's only three that are gonna be taken. The Bank of the West, the Midas, which we've already purchased and relocated, and Raleigh Bertos, which we've already purchased. Everything else will stay. They're only losing, we're buying just a certain portion of their frontage road.
And does it say that in here? Because I didn't see that.
Yeah, we've been pretty specific about that. Every discussion we've had.
Well, I've only had a few discussions. This has been
Yeah.
going for 5 years or so like that, you know, and it's just kind of, I'm just wondering if this whole thing with Wadsworth, when we have Wadsworth, which is a state highway, I mean, is different in Lakewood and Arvada, and then they hit Wheatridge, and all of a sudden we're going to be all different.
The two intersections are a different design, but both Arvada and Lakewood over the years have widened their stretches of Wadsworth. They also required to purchase property from businesses. You can't widen a road without purchasing property. Wadsworth has been determined for many, many years, Ms. Hutchinson, as a priority project to improve for the congestion that we see in Wadsworth, and then also increase the pedestrian mobility along Wadsworth. So there's a lot of areas along Wadsworth now where people have to walk. There is nowhere to walk. So this has been a priority for many years, and the reason it's taken 5 years is because it's a state highway, and there's federal funding being used to help with the improvements. And because of that, you're required to go through these very long environmental assessment and Pell processes, which take years.
And I understand about updating Wadsworth. There's no question about that. But when, you know, we're doing the CFIs here and it's not done in Lakewood or Arvada, and then you're talking about doing the sidewalks for people to walk. There's not a lot of people who are walking on Wadsworth. I really don't see that myself. And I drive Wadsworth. So it's not like, you know, tons of people. So I don't know. I just have some concerns about this whole thing. And I just wonder, really, is this the best thing for Wheatridge when we can't even complete the whole project? When we don't even know when the second part's going to be done?
We'd love to complete the whole project, Ms. Hutchinson, right now, but the budget came in a lot higher than the money we have. And CDOT doesn't have the money, and that's one reason the city's doing the project. Again, this has been a priority for the city for many years, and previous councils. We were able to find some money to do it. CDOT doesn't have the money, and unfortunately, the amount of money we found is not enough. Construction projects and the purchase in the right-of-way is very expensive. It's about $15 million. Ken can maybe speak to why this design has the continuous flow improvements. We've talked about this numerous times too, but can you maybe explain why the final design has the continuous flow?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Patrick. And thanks for the question, Ms. Hutchinson. I think to your first question in terms of what the footprint of what the facility that is being proposed in Wheatridge looks like relative to what you've seen be built in Lakewood, it's actually it's very similar in terms of 3 continuous lanes and detached sidewalks and sidewalks of an adequate width that they're safe to be used. So that's quite similar to what you see further to the south that's been most recently improved in Lakewood. And then as to the CFIs, I mean, those were really the type of intersection improvement that was going to give the best capacity to move traffic, and actually by and large probably has the same or a lesser footprint in terms of private property impacts than double left turn lanes would have at the 2 main intersections at 38th and 44th. So the CFI configuration was really recommended in part because of that, in part because of the footprint of the facility was actually less impactful in some locations. And then more importantly, from a CDOT and from an environmental assessment standpoint, it moves traffic more comprehensively for a longer period of time. So the double left turn configuration would have improved things for, I forget the exact numbers, but 5 or 10 years, whereas the level of traffic improvement with the CFIs lasts for more like 20 years. So that was really the driving factor for going with that type of a design.
And Ms. Hutchinson, if I can respond on your confusion on the way the packet was put together, the process to buy a full acquisition as opposed to a partial acquisition is exactly the same. That's why in the packet, asking for the authority for the city to use it, their eminent domain authority, everything looks exactly the same. It doesn't really differentiate the full and the partial acquisitions because the process of what you go through is exactly the same from a process standpoint. So I completely understand your confusion on it looks like that we're buying all these properties. We're not. These 6, 5 of these are and maybe all of them now are partial acquisitions. Yeah, all of them are partial acquisitions. We're just buying strips of property in front. The strips are wider in some places and the strips are narrower in some places. The road moves around a lot because of having to dodge the historical properties in some locations. And then the CFIs by their nature, sometimes they have a bigger acquisition on one side than they do the other side. But that's really what's going on. And I completely understand the confusion that you had about whether these, it says real property. It looks like we're buying everything, but we're not. On all 5, 6 of the ones that are left, these are just partial acquisitions. So we're just buying a strip of some width in front of each of them. And it varies on all of them. The number, right-of-way number 69, which is A7, is an extremely small piece of property that we need, but we need it in order to build the ramp for the sidewalk to be able to cross 48th Avenue. So we seriously considered, do we really have to buy this because it's such a small piece and we're really having trouble contacting that property owner. And so that's just where we are. And so again, these 6 are all just partial acquisition. If that helps alleviate some of that concern with what you thought the packet you might be doing with approving the use of eminent domain on these 6 parcels that are left.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Urban?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Could you pull up the list of properties and the updates that you had on today? On A1, given that the terminus of phase 1 is prior to that address, why are we considering using eminent domain on that when we don't know when that part of the project will be completed?
One of our goals as we started looking at phasing this project was to go ahead and have the remainder, the phase 2 portion shovel ready so that if some money was found, and sometimes the federal government puts out some either stimulus packages or just some big construction project packages. During the Obama administration, they were called Tiger grants. It was changed to a build grant during the Trump administration, where they're looking for projects that need another $10 or $15 million in order to finish the whole project and that kind of thing. And so our thought on this is to go ahead and get all of these right-of-ways bought so that we can be shovel ready with phase 2. If a funding opportunity drops into our lap that we can go after, then we're ready to go after that funding opportunity. So that's the primary motivation for that. The secondary motivation is right now, we've got a budget of funding available of $45 million. What we're showing right now as our cost estimate right now with a 10% contingency is a total funding needed, a total budget of cost estimate of $44 million. So we've got maybe right now $1 million extra, and we have some more funding sources. We're still very aggressively trying to pursue other funding sources. And our hope would be is that if we get that, in addition to having the base project from basically Wendy's, McDonald's to the north, and you're right, the Munchkin property is just south of that, is that we might have some bid alternates to try to bite off some more. If we end up with $1 million or $2 or $3 extra dollars somewhere, that we might be able to bite off some more chunks of the improvements so we can provide more facilities for folks. And what we've talked about as staff as a first maybe bid alternate is to try to get the sidewalk completed from Wendy's down to 30th Avenue. Because the coroner's already built a sidewalk from 35th to 38th. So that's why we think it's still important to get this property bought and get it purchased in case we have some extra money that we can do some additional work out there. and provide some more facilities for either the cars or the non-cars. So that's our primary reason for going ahead and going after that property now.
Thank you. Do we have additional questions for staff on this? All right, Ms. Hulteen, may I have a motion on this item number 5?
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Dahl, yes.
I apologize. My internet cut out there. Can you hear me okay?
I'm sorry, yes, I can.
Thank
Do you have a follow-up?
Yeah, as far as if we were to go forward with eminent domain on the property, what's the longest period of time it would take to go through full acquisition through the eminent domain process?
That varies a lot. The first step on that is the city attorney's office files a petition for what's called immediate possession. And then that goes, and a hearing is scheduled, and the rules say that's got to be scheduled within 30 days. That generally doesn't happen. It generally takes a little longer than 30 days to do that. And then you go for an immediate possession hearing, and at that hearing, you present your case that we need the property and those kind of things, and the judge rules whether or not you get immediate possession on that or not. The vast majority of cases that go before immediate possession hearing are granted if we've done our job right, and we think we have. And then if, and during that time, the lawyers will continue to talk, and we'll continue to work with the property owner. If they say, hey, look, we don't want to go through the hassle of a trial, we'll go ahead and do this, then we'll make a deal. And, because we file for immediate possession doesn't mean we go all the way to evaluation trial, which will happen several months later. So what happens with getting clearances in order to go out to bid, as I mentioned in December, late December, early January timeframe, is that once we file for immediate possession, we've sort of started that process, then we can get what's called a conditional right-of-way clearance from CDOT. We give them the list of all the properties that we've purchased or that we have agreements on, and then we say, here's the remaining list, and we filed for immediate possession on all of those remaining properties, and then they will, and it goes through a process. We've got to show that we've done the right thing and all those kind of things. But they'll then give us a conditional right-of-way clearance to go ahead and bid the project, hoping that during the time of the bid and all those things and getting the contracts ironed out and awarded and stuff, we'll be able to get those immediate possession hearings done and get everything else resolved. So there is a process, and it could very well that we could start construction and we're still waiting for the valuation hearing if we go to that final step where the court or a three-person panel decides what the fair market value is, what that amount that the property owner should be paid. Because that's really all it's decided by that process is what the amount is paid. It doesn't decide whether we get the property or not.
What is the length of time involved at the maximum that we would be looking at for a contested eminent domain hearing?
So again, the immediate possession hearing generally happens within a couple of months. And talking with Mr. Rivera from Mr. Dahl's office, he's actually seen those happen within 2 weeks or happen within 3 months. So there's right now, because of COVID, things in the court system are really all over the map. It's really hard to predict anything right now. To go all the way to evaluation trial could again take several more months just to get on the docket, and then everybody presents their cases. So it could be spring or summer before these things are finally settled as far as how much the property owner is going to get paid. Like I said, we could be under construction before that actually happens.
Not on those
properties. The question was really just how much time, and the answer is could be as much as 6 or 8 months.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any more discussion on this item before we go to a vote? All right, I don't see any hands. Ms. Hulteen, may I have a motion on agenda item number 5, please?
Mr. Mayor, can I suggest
yes,
an edit to Ms. Hulteen based upon the change to the exhibit?
Okay, let's get some wording out there and we'll go from there.
Ms. Hulteen, you'll notice on the council action form there are 2 motions. As usual, an approval and a denial motion.
Yep.
And they're basically the same motion with very few, one's an approval, one's a denial. So in each case, I don't know what motion you're going to make, but in each case, substitute in the second line the word 9 for the word 6.
Got it.
And further over on that same line, after on Wadsworth Boulevard, insert Exhibit A as revised, because that way if the motion passes, we'll revise the resolution to match up with Exhibit A, which has been revised to just show 6. Those are the 2 changes to the motion.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Dahl.
Yep.
Thank you. I move to approve resolution number 50-2020, a resolution concerning the acquisition and acceptance of 6 properties on Wadsworth Boulevard, Exhibit A as revised, for the purpose of constructing, installing, maintaining, and using public improvements for improving Wadsworth Boulevard by either negotiation and voluntary purchase, or if necessary, through the utilization of the city's power of eminent domain, and authorizing such action as necessary to accomplish said purposes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Hoppy. Discussion on the motion. Mr. Urban.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This isn't the first time that we've had this similar resolution before us asking for the use of eminent domain on this project. And had we previously allowed eminent domain to be used, we can't say for certain whether the Midas property would have gone through that eminent domain process or not. Thankfully, it didn't go through that process. But given the fact that we're not able to complete phase 2 right now because of the funding situation, it does concern me greatly that we have a property on this list that isn't within the phase 1 parameters of the project. And to tell a property owner that we're going to physically take their property on the hope and the dream that phase 2 will come down the road at some point in the future is I don't see that in the public interest. And so that's my first concern. My second concern is that in other municipalities and other situations where CDOT and Federal Highway Administration funding is available, there have been circumstances where the local agency has transferred the project management and oversight functions to CDOT for them to manage the project. And if we're going to take people's property along Wadsworth, I think we need to be honest with ourselves and understand that the Wadsworth widening project is too much for the city of Wheatridge to handle by ourselves. And we need to seriously consider allowing CDOT to manage this project and to take over this project on our behalf if we're going to do right by these property owners. So I would like to ask for the A1 property to be removed from the eminent domain list as currently presented.
Is there any other further discussion on the motion? Mr. Stites and then Ms. Hoppy.
I guess regarding Mr. Urban's comment there, what is the likelihood that, or I guess what would be a timeline, do you think, Mr. Westberg, because you said that the feds sometimes have money sitting available. Is that a likelihood in the next year, 2 years, 3 years? I mean, what's the timeline on possibly getting that second half done?
Mr. Stites, I would answer that we anticipate that being part of the bid documents, that would be a bid alternate in the project that we put on the street in a couple months.
Thank you.
And Ms. Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As far as I'm concerned, I think that we should move forward with all of the pieces so that we can have a complete plan. And, you know, like Mr. Westberg explained, if we have a shovel-ready project, that gives us more points when we're looking for grant money. And so shovel-ready, you get points for certain things when they're looking at grants, and it being shovel-ready gets us more points. And so that would put us in an advantage over another community. And because of that, I would like to keep it on.
Thank you. Additional discussion on the motion. Mr. Urban.
I'd like to make a substitute motion to remove A1 from the list of approved properties to be considered for eminent domain. Or an amendment, not a substitute motion, but an amendment to the motion.
Okay, so we have an amendment. Is there to remove item number 1. Is there a second on the amendment? That motion fails for lack of a second. Ms. Hutchinson?
I'd second it.
Oh, you're going to second it? Okay, let's discuss the motion or the amendment. Is there discussion on the amendment? Mr. Stites?
I will say the reason I didn't second that is because I agree with Ms. Hoppy that if we are going to move forward with the first phase, we should be ready for the second phase as quickly as possible. And to get this project moving and to make sure that we can get the funding when we can get it and get it done when we get it done, I think if we are going to move forward, then we should move forward and be ready to go. So that's why I won't support the amendment.
Okay, is there additional discussion on the amendment? Okay, let us go to a vote on the amendment. This would be to remove property A1 from the list. Is that correct, Mr. Urban?
Correct.
Okay, all those in favor of the amendment to remove A1 from the list, please signify by raising your hand. And will the clerk please poll the council?
I see 2 votes aye.
Okay, all those opposed to the amendment?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Kirkpatrick, I lost, you went mute on me. You're still mute.
Mr. Mayor, if there's any confusion, you can certainly ask the clerk to call the roll.
Okay, I'm just asking for, how did the amendment pass or fail?
the amendment failed by a vote of 2 in favor and 6 against.
Thank you. All right, we'll go back to the main motion. Is there any further discussion on the main motion? Mr. Urban.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make an amendment at the end of this current motion to move to direct the city manager to work with CDOT to consider transfer of all project management and project oversight functions where possible to CDOT for the remainder of the Wadsworth widening project and report back to City Council on October 26th on the status of this request of CDOT.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Goff.
Yeah, maybe a little discussion on that first. I think that's been part of the process, Ken or Mark. I'm not sure CDOT wants to take management of the project. Ken, do you know any history on that?
So if I can just butt in just a second, Ken. Item number 6, the CDOT IGA amendment would be a much more appropriate place to discuss this kind of amendment, Mr. Urban. If you want to talk about it then, because one of the attachments to the CDOT IGA amendment outlines who's responsible for what, and that's got us responsible for the construction. So
yeah, but we're talking right now about taking people's property before we're talking about renewing the IGA, which expires in 2 weeks. So that is somewhat frustrating from an agenda perspective. I let that slide. My concern here is that we're moving forward with allowing eminent domain and taking people's property when our oversight of this project hasn't been as good as it could be. And to do right by the property owners, it would be to ensure that this project gets finished.
So, Mr. Urban, to maybe respond to the question that Mr. Goff posed, to date, CDOT has expressed reluctance to be project manager on this. At one point in time, they were going to have more construction oversight, and they backed away from that role several years ago and have not, to my mind, changed that opinion that they don't want to be in the lead on construction management and don't have the capacity to direct resources in that manner.
That's why I'm asking for it to be considered and a report back to us and a request of CDOT be made.
That is currently not part of the motion. We're still on the main motion.
He's made a second amendment, new amendment from Mr. Urban.
Is there a second amendment? Is there a second to the amendment?
I'll second that, yeah.
Okay, is there a discussion on the amendment? Okay, Ms. Nosler-Beck.
Can we just kind of go over the amendment one more time? What we're asking?
Sure. Move to direct the city manager to work with CDOT to consider transfer of all project management and project oversight functions where possible to CDOT for the remainder of the Wadsworth Widening project, and to report back to City Council on October 26th on the status of this request of CDOT.
Okay, Ms. Hoppy.
And if CDOT says no, then what are we doing with, I mean, then this amendment means nothing? Or, I mean, this could be something where you could ask for it to be added to a study session so that we could have actual full discussion with CDOT to see what pieces they could take on or couldn't take on, instead of making it a council action with no backup material, no actual discussion with CDOT, no actual discussion with the community development team on what they think, if they could offload or onload, or if there could even be a third party come in to try to do some of that management. So I think this is a little bit shooting from the hip, and I won't be supporting it.
Ms. Hulteen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Ms. Hoppy. I think it's definitely an interesting idea, but to be brought up in this context without any preparation or understanding of what that would entail, I just don't feel comfortable voting on it in this context. If someone wanted to add it to a study session, I would be interested in looking at it there, but I would definitely want to know more and understand more before taking any vote on that. Thank you.
Is there further discussion on the Second Amendment? Mr. Urban.
To answer the council members' concerns regarding this amendment, the amendment certainly doesn't drop the ball or to suggest that we're handing this off to CDOT tonight. It's to direct the city manager to begin that discussion with CDOT, and the status of that could be brought back, the status of that request could be brought back to a study session or to a council meeting, whichever is preferred. It's a matter of understanding that in order to begin the eminent domain process, we need to understand the best way to move forward with this project. And one of the options to move forward with this project is to ask CDOT to take over this project, because in my personal opinion, we do not have the capacity to manage this project as well as it needs to be done in order to be taking people's private property.
Ms. Weaver.
I agree with Ms. Hoppy and Ms. Hulteen. I think it's really inappropriate to tack this on as an amendment to a different topic because I don't think it's related to the eminent domain discussion. I also would like to correct Mr. Urban. We are not taking property. This is a payment for property, and that has been said many times. And we have had several sessions on what eminent domain is. We are not taking property. People are being paid for property. Thanks. I will not be supporting this amendment.
Additional discussion on the Second Amendment. Okay, let's go to a vote. All those in favor of the Second Amendment, please raise your hands. And will the clerk please record the votes?
I see 3 aye votes. Are there any nay votes?
All those opposed, please raise your hand.
Mr. Mayor, the amendment has passed a vote of 3 to 5.
Okay, thank you very much. We are back at the main motion. Is there additional discussion on the main motion? Ms. Hulteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to recognize that this particular project in 2 phases requires substantial negotiations with a lot of properties. And, the progress that's been made even in the couple of weeks since it was first presented to us a couple of weeks ago shows that the city is doing this work with due diligence, and that the overwhelming majority of property owners on the corridor are in fact working with the city. And to me, that signals that they are supportive of the project moving forward. So I just want to take a minute. I know we spend a lot of time looking at the handful that aren't going with that, but I am really impressed with the number of properties that we've successfully negotiated with. And I just want to thank staff for doing that. Thank you.
Ms. Dozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I just kind of wanted to touch on the last amendment and moving forward. I believe in more local control, and I feel like our city staff knows what's best for our community, and because they live here, because they have the community's ear, they understand, the concerns, and are quicker, quite honestly, and more responsive to address issues that the community has. Wadsworth, we knew going into this that Wadsworth was going to be a very challenging project, just like we know that about Kipling. Anytime that we have to have multiple government agencies working together, it's going to take time, it's going to take money. And I would hate to see Wadsworth stall at this point in time, because we have invested so much time and so much money that I don't want to see that go to waste. And I may not necessarily agree with every single aspect of the project, but the project needs to be done, and it is what's best for our community. So I just appreciate all of the work, and I also want to echo that many of the properties they negotiated successfully with the city, and nobody wants to be talking about eminent domain, but it's our last ditch effort. So I just wanted to thank staff, and I really hope to see us break ground as soon as possible on this project.
Thank you. I have Mr. Stites and then Ms. Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Ms. Dozeman. I despite some of the motions and things like that, and this project not being perfect and needing to be done in phases, and all in all, it is a project that does need to be done, and it is something that we need to move forward with. And looking at the property acquisition from the smaller businesses and the businesses, honestly, I think most of us probably expected to kind of balk a little bit more. Those businesses have pretty much accomplished what they need to accomplish with the city. We're talking about a lot of bigger, it looks like, and people that are harder to get a hold of, and some other maybe unrealistic or whatever asks as far as the price and things like that goes. So we're not arguing about, in most cases, whether or not the property owners or the business owners think that this should be done, because I think in most cases, most of them do, and I think as a whole, most of the citizens think we do. So as we move forward, even though it's not perfect, we do have to get it done. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just kind of wanted to echo what Councilwoman Dozeman and Stites and Haltine have said. I think that this project, it's going to hurt when it's getting done. It's definitely going to be growing pains, no doubt about it. We have looked at ways to make sure that that we are like mitigating traffic on Upham, as it would be a main cut through street. Pierce also. I live right off of Pierce, can be a real nightmare during rush hour. That's right now, and so it'll continue to be that way while we are going through the pains of the construction. But once it's done, it's going to ease the congestion on our side streets, which ultimately is just so much better for our streets, for our community, for our walkability, and for people to be able to actually walk down Wadsworth, to be able to access the bus stops and the main route without having to walk in the street, or to be able to roll even down Wadsworth, will be an amazing feature for our community. Because I'm embarrassed when my sister-in-law, who has spina bifida and is in a wheelchair, comes to our community, because there are very few places that her and I can walk together when we are not in the road. And so I'm actually very excited for this project. No, it's not perfect. Yes, there are growing pains. And no, we don't want to have to take this step, but for us to only have to take it for 6 properties currently, I think it's better than what I had anticipated. So thank you to all the staff for working on this.
Thank you. Is there additional discussion on the main motion? Mr. Urban.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would agree that this project is crucial to the future of Wheatridge. I would agree that when this project is finished, it will be a great addition to the accessibility and the movement of traffic in Wheatridge. My substitute motions and my concerns on this are to that end, to make sure that we get to that finish date where both phase 1 and phase 2 are complete. My concern is, having watched this project move forward over time, that we as a city simply don't have the capacity to manage this project as well as it needs to be managed. It does not to suggest that what has been done by city staff hasn't been stellar or exceptional, or they haven't done their best. It's acknowledging that this is a huge project and we need all the support we can get. And my concern by allowing eminent domain is we are moving forward with eminent domain when there's a lot of variables that aren't in place. We do not have a sign off by DRCOG in the November meeting that the second strike is acceptable to them, that they're going to allow us to continue, that there's no future date for phase 2 to begin. Those are significant hurdles that we haven't even gotten to yet. And so those are the impetus for my substitute motions and my concerns regarding this project. And the need for eminent domain is clear. It's not that we don't need eminent domain, but it is if we're going to be doing eminent domain, we need to make sure that we have the full capacity to finish the project, because the whole purpose of eminent domain is for the purchasing the property, taking the property, however you want to put it, to for a public interest to finish the road. If like, for instance, in the Midas building, if I was the owner of that Midas building, finding out that phase 2 isn't going to start till whenever, I would be somewhat furious. And I understand the need to be shovel ready. And I understand that we as a city have that power of eminent domain, and the city staff has done a good job at whittling down the number of properties that we need to do eminent domain on. But it's a matter of figuring out, is the city of Wheatridge the best entity to be managing this project? And I don't have that confidence right now. I will be supporting this motion to move forward on this eminent domain, because I think that that's critical to the success of the project, but I still reserve these concerns that I have and the lack of confidence I have in our ability to manage this project.
Thank you. Is there additional discussion on the main motion? Ms. Nosler-Beck.
Thanks. And I wanted to say thanks to staff. I know there's just been numerous presentations on this project and on why we're going to be using eminent domain. And I also think that it's so important for us to fix Wadsworth because it needs to be accessible for everyone in Wheatridge, not just people who are utilizing it by car or whatever. But I am just opposed to eminent domain as a tool, and I don't agree with it as an action that the city should be taking. So tonight, I'm most likely going to be voting no, because that's just where I am on eminent domain. So,
thank you. Additional discussion on the main motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand, and will the clerk please count the votes?
I see 6 votes aye.
Okay, all those opposed to the motion, please raise your hands.
Mr. Mayor, the motion is passed by a vote of 6-2.
Okay, thank you very much. Good discussion. Let us move now to agenda item number 6. Mr. Urban, would you please introduce number 6?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Resolution 51-2020, a resolution approving an amendment to the contract for the Colorado Department of Transportation for the Wadsworth widening project from 35th Avenue to Interstate I-70.
Okay, Mr. Goff, do we have a staff report on this item?
We do. Ken or Mark?
You know, I think beyond the issue statement, this IGA is really, as the second paragraph in that issue statement states, really just about amending the budget for the project and amending the time frame and duration of the project. So, Mark, unless you have anything to add beyond that, that really is the reason for the IGA amendment.
Mr. Urban, in that context, would you please read what's at issue in this item?
One moment. At issue in 2015, the city was awarded funding through to the Denver Regional Council of Governments, DRCOG, Transportation Improvement Program TIP to improve Wadsworth Boulevard from 35th Avenue to 48th Avenue. An agreement with CDOT to administer that funding was approved in 2015. An additional TIP grant was awarded by DRCOG in 2019. In addition, CDOT has allocated state safety and state surface funds to the project. An amendment to the original 2015 agreement is necessary to add additional funds to the project budget and to extend the term of the contract with CDOT beyond the original expiration date of October 25th, 2020.
Okay, thank you. And we've had a brief staff report on this. I'd like to open this up to the public for comment on this item. If anyone from the public would like to speak on agenda item number 6, this is your opportunity to do so. You may raise your hand in the Zoom format, or if you are on the telephone, we will take your call if you would speak up. Ms. Scheck, do we have anyone with their hand raised in the Zoom format?
No, Mayor.
Okay, is there anyone on the telephone that would like to speak on this item?
I would like to speak. This is Vivian.
Yes, Ms. Voss, please introduce yourself and give us your address again, and you may continue.
Vivian Voss, 6920 West 47th Place. As I see what this is about, approving an amendment to the contract, oh my goodness, I thought CDOT was managing this. And then Council Member Urban brought up the fact that we should be giving this management to CDOT. I'm surprised that anybody other than CDOT is building this, managing this. I know we had to get the money so that they could pay for it, but I think it truly is a project that CDOT needs to handle and be in charge of. And then I might comment on the fact that the design for the CFI was commented that for the future, the design of CFI is better than a 2-lane turn because of upgrades to more traffic in the future. And I'm not sure we're going to have more traffic in the future if everybody gets their way about we need to build wider sidewalks to walk and we need to build more bike lanes to bike. So it kind of befuddles me to think that we're wanting walking and biking, but yet we're preparing for more traffic. I'm also wondering if city council members have at all seen any of the contracts between CDOT and the city, whatever those contracts might be, and is CDOT in full agreement and approval with the CFI lane or not? I'd like to know if you all have seen that contract specific to that. And I'm definitely opposed to a cul-de-sac at 48. That's in my neighborhood. And what you're doing to the businesses, what you're doing to any amount of taking, and the use of the word eminent domain, and then changing the way we operate within our city. And this should just be a road that goes from the south side to the north side of the city. We shouldn't be having medians. Medians separate, and we don't need the east side from the west side of the city separated and without access throughout the neighborhoods onto Wadsworth. And if CDOT would do a better timing of the lights down at I-70 in Wadsworth. I live in that part of town, and so I'm very used to having to deal with the traffic that backs up to 48. And I think it seems like it would be a simple, cheaper measure to just work on the lights that are down at that part of Wadsworth and see if traffic moves better that way. This whole project of widening Wadsworth is a CDOT project, and it should remain a CDOT project. The only business that the city of Wheatridge has in this area of Wadsworth is that the city wants landscaping from the curb out. They want wider sidewalks, and they want bike lanes, and they want more, which is what is causing the taking of property, the eminent domain usage. And I'm just befuddled by the fact that this is actually two projects working together, I understand, for the common goal and not having to tear up a curb or a street more than once. And in the meantime, while we're waiting for all of this to happen, Wadsworth surface keeps deteriorating to potholes and no striping and that sort of thing. And I'd like to see how this all plays out when we get to shoveling, snow removal. I'm wondering if CDOT, who can't afford anything, can afford to, in a timely manner, take care of Kipling and Wadsworth. And I did not see on Wheatridge Speaks any presentation on the site. I do understand that the presentations were pretty short anyway, but I'm just surprised there wasn't any presentation that I could find on either 5 or 6. And so I'd like to see more of a distinction between what CDOT is responsible for and doing and what the city is trying to undertake. And I think that's all I've got. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who would like to speak on this? Ms. Scheck, do we have anyone with their hand up in the Zoom format?
No, Mayor.
Okay. Is there anyone from the public on the telephone who would like to speak on this item? Okay, I don't hear anyone, so we will close our public comment. We will open this up to questions from council of staff. We have questions on this item. Mr. Urban.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under Exhibit L, the CDOT subrecipient risk assessment, it doesn't appear that this has been filled out, or when is this risk assessment filled out, and what are the answers to the questions that it asks in the subrecipient risk assessment?
Yeah, so all those attachments that are included with the IGA amendment are standard federal forms and stuff that are added. The only one that we really fill out for the IGA is that form 1273, I think is the right number, which outlines who's responsible for what as we proceed through the project. That risk assessment is something that we do on an annual basis with CDOT. They interview us and we fill those things out, and that mostly is filled out by our financial folks in our finance department. We certainly add some information to it from our end on the things that we manage and do, but we've passed all of those every single year. We've not had any issues or concerns come up as a part of those risk assessments. So that is something that, is done. I believe it's annual. I'm pretty sure we do it every single year with CDOT at some point.
So like item number 20 in the program management assessment, it says, does your entity have a written process or procedure or certification statement approved by your governing board ensuring critical project management personnel are capable of effectively managing federal aid projects? So we would be the governing board. I don't know that we've ever seen any kind of written process or procedure relative, or certification statement relative to project management.
I don't know how to answer all, I'd have to go back and look at our previous ones to see how we answered that. So sorry, I don't have that answer off the top of my head. I wasn't prepared to try to answer something off the thing. I know that we've done it annually, and every year we've managed to, we've gotten favorable reviews of that from CDOT and haven't had any issues.
Is there additional questions for staff on this agenda item number 6? Mr. Urban.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So given that this expires on the 25th of this month, what are the implications of this not being approved this evening?
Well, it doesn't add all the additional funding, so our funding would go back to the original $31 million. That's the biggest impact. If we don't approve this tonight, then We have a $31 million project, not a $45 million project. And we're building even less than we would with the additional funding that we've got. The expiration date of the 26th, I don't know the impact of that. I know that CDOT was very happy that I told them that we were going to have this on the October 12th meeting. I actually started working with CDOT in November of last year to try to move this IGA amendment forward, and we're just now getting it to you. Their process is a little time consuming and convoluted sometimes, and we've struggled at times to get through their system and get them the information that they need and to hear back from them. And that's why we're suddenly getting it now here at basically the last minute. We knew about this a year ago, and the city started providing information to them a year ago. And I received this amendment, I think, 3 weeks ago, and very quickly reviewed it and forwarded it to Mr. Dahl, and he approved it. And that's where we've got it before you tonight. They're going to work very quickly on their end to try to get all the signatures. It generally takes them at least a month to get signatures, but they're going to work very quickly to try to get everything signed, assuming that it's approved by council tonight, so that we don't have a lapse in the project for any period of time.
Thank you. Is there additional discussion on, or not discussion, but questions for staff on this one, on this agenda item number 6? Mr. Urban.
Sorry. So in several of these exhibits, there are what appears to be, it's a sample option letter, for instance, on page 165 of the packet, exhibit B1. So when it's a sample exhibit that doesn't exist, or I guess I'm confused of why we would have sample language in a document that we're approving.
Again, that's just a standard CDOT thing, that this is a sample of what an option letter would look like. We've actually approved, I believe, 3 option letters to shift funding around over the last several years. And it's a mechanism for doing things without doing a full-blown amendment. The amendments take 6 months to a year to do. The option letters take much less time. Because this amendment includes everything, including construction, the construction funds aren't authorized yet. They'll actually use an option letter to authorize the construction funds when that time comes, so that we can do that much quicker than by doing another IGA amendment at that point. So that's, again, they just include their sample documents so that some jurisdictions like Denver like to nitpick things, and they don't always accept all the standard CDOT language. And so they include all these sample things in there for them to do that. Just like when we do construction contracts, we put things out to bid, we include a sample construction contract in our bid document, so people have an idea of what they're going to be obligated to under that construction contract.
Thank you.
By turning those bids in.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Dahl.
Mark is right about the structure of these CDOT IGAs or agreements. I review them frequently, and the nature of their structure is, as Mark has described, to kind of set up the forms that would be needed as the project unfolds, even though they're not needed right now. They kind of effectively give you a whole handbook for the whole life of the project, which in other jurisdictions you could keep coming back and doing little pieces of it, but they're largely implementive forms that structure this agreement, as is often the case, as Mark has described, for CDOT agreements, and sometimes for federal agreements. They give you the forms ahead of time, and then they're all in your little workbook, the handbook, really, as the project moves forward.
Thank you. Additional questions for staff on this item? Okay, Mr. Urban, may I have a motion on this item, please?
One moment. I move to approve Resolution 51-2020, a resolution approving an amendment to the contract with the Colorado Department of Transportation for the Wadsworth Widening Project from 35th Avenue to Interstate I-70.
Second. Is that the motion for item number 6, or I have something different in my book, I think?
That's the motion for 6.
Okay. There's a motion and a second. Is there discussion on the motion? Mr. Urban?
I won't add any additional language to the motion that I've already made, but I'll just continue to put out there that we should consider, and I'd like to add it to a subsequent study session, that we consider what project management we as a city can handle and whether CDOT can assist us at a greater extent than they already have. And understanding that this IGA provides for an outline for what tasks we're beholden to and what tasks they're responsible for. And while we're approving this IGA today, that doesn't preclude us from amending it in the future.
Thank you. Is there additional discussion on the motion? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by raising your hand. Will the clerk please record the votes?
Mr. Mayor, the motion is passed 8-0.
Okay, thank you very much. That concludes our agenda for tonight. We will go now to city managers matters. Mr. Goff.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple quick things. I believe Ms. Scheck sent out an email to you all earlier today. The census has been extended through its original deadline, I believe, of August 31st. So there was some discussion that they were going to end that sooner, but it has been extended through October 31st. So if there's some folks in our community that still haven't filled out the census, you have until the 31st. And second item, Mr. DiTullio is planning another volunteer cleanup for our I-70 Kipling corridor. And it is scheduled for, let's see, I think I have the dates, the 30th, October 30th. It's a Friday this time, 10 o'clock. If anybody wants to come help us, we'll be down there meeting at the Village Inn at I-70 and Kipling there. That's the staging area. And we're going to work for about an hour and a half. So if anybody would like to help us clean up that area, we would love your help. Thank you.
Thank you. City attorneys matters. Mr. Dahl.
Nothing tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. We'll go to elected officials matters. And just a minute, I need to find my list here. We'll start with our clerk, Mr. Kirkpatrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As most of you know, we received 2 protests to the petition that was declared sufficient to reverse the zoning change at 38th and Johnson. The 2 protests came from Judy Capra and Odarka Figlis, who were participants in the petition process. So they filed a protest against their own petition, which they have now rescinded in a notarized document that they filed in my office last Friday. I tell you this so you will know we are now diligently working on details to present the council at a future date on your options now that the petition has been declared sufficient. I have no more details at this point. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't believe we have our treasurer, Chris Miller, on the line tonight. So we will go to Ms. Nosler-Beck.
Thanks, Mayor. Just wanted to remind folks that there's another ballot drop box at Anderson Park. I think sometimes people forget about it, but it's super conveniently located for District 4 residents, also District 3. It's awesome, accessible. Vote.
There's one at Prospect Park also.
Oh, I just talked about District 4.
And City Hall.
And City Hall. Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Nosler-Beck. Ms. Dozman.
Nothing tonight. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Stites.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Weaver and I had a great time on Saturday. We got to host about 14, 15 people at Louis Turner Park for our first District 3 meeting, and it was great. We had a spirited discussion. We hit all the topics, I think, and the group was there. They want more, so we'll be looking at doing another one here in December. I think we're kind of looking at about every other month or so for our District 3 meetings. So I really appreciate everybody coming out, and as usual, cut your weeds and take care of your neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We did have a good time on Saturday. And since I think it's in my district, Prospect Park, there's a drop box in Prospect Park.
Okay, terrific. Thank you very much. Ms. Hulteen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So thank you to those who beat me to the punch on the ballot box drop-offs. I just want to make a comment here since I didn't feel it was pertinent to the discussions on Wadsworth. There are a lot of people who walk and attempt to ride their bikes along that corridor. And when we are looking at any transportation corridor that moves people, we need to consider people who don't have access to cars, either for economic reasons, they're unable to drive. And so sometimes we don't see people walking on Wadsworth because there are no sidewalks. It's incredibly dangerous. I won't let my own 14-year-old son ride his bike to Wendy's where he's supposed to go get French fries. He has to go back through the neighborhoods. So I just wanted to make mention that, you know, the idea that we're looking at transportation without considering people who can't drive makes it an incomplete transportation corridor. And then I just also want to call out really quickly, there are a lot of posts on Nextdoor and Facebook right now about missing animals. And I just want to remind, at this hour, if anyone's listening, like, bless your heart. But I just want to remind everybody that it's really important to license your animals, and you can do that through Foothills. And the fees through licensing really supports their services to our community. So, you know, we all hope our dogs don't get out or our cats don't get out, but, you know, play safe and do what you're supposed to, get your pets licensed. And then should they get out, you're much more likely to get reunited with them. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hulteen. Mr. Urban.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to see if I can get some support from another council member to add to an upcoming study session, considering the transfer of whatever project management oversight of the Wadsworth Widening Project to CDOT.
I'll support you on that, Councilmember Urban.
Okay, looks like we have two people to support you on that, so I'm sure that our Mayor Pro Tem will get that on the calendar. Thank you.
Thank you. Nothing else.
Thank you very much. Ms. Hutchinson.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Hoppy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I would like to say thank you to Councilwoman Nosler-Beck for telling me about the spacebar microphone in Zoom. It has made my evening so much better. So thank you. There's somebody who had mentioned that we didn't have a dog park in our community, which we do. We have the Fruitdale Dog Park. So feel free to go check that one out. And then I just want to say thank you very much to Deb Bittner, and Scott Shields was also on the line, the CEO of Family Tree. Deb Bittner is the Director of Domestic Violence Services for Family Tree. And just want to let people know that if you want to support them in their mission and helping people stay safe, strong, and self-reliant, you can visit them at thefamilytree.org and see all the good things they're doing, and see if there's some way you can help, whether it be financially or helping them with some of their property maintenance. They sometimes have painting parties or weed pulling parties. So other than that, thanks everybody. And I'm glad we didn't have to extend the meeting. I was worried about that for a minute.
Thank you. I would like to congratulate and thank Mr. Pickett for his terrific service to our city, and Mr. McDaniel on their retirement. Both of those gentlemen are fine officers that have helped our community be safe, and we thank them for their service and wish them, only the best in their retirement. I would like to thank all of the citizens who came tonight to our meeting and gave us their opinions on how we should look at things in our city. I think we are stronger when we listen to our citizens and invite them into our forums. I want to thank the folks who showed up on my Zoom meeting for Second Saturday with the mayor this last Saturday. We had a good time. I want to thank Mr. Stice for joining me for a while, and thank you all for having meetings. And I want to put out a special shout out to the Complete Count Committee that worked with our city staff and members of our community, and Ms. Scheck in particular, to do a terrific job in putting out the message that we vote in our community, we take it seriously, and we encourage all of our citizens to go and vote. This is how you earn your franchise. It's a duty that we have to enact our citizenship, and I hope everyone will make a plan and register and vote in this coming up election. It's very important. Once again, I hope everyone will take the safety requirements, the safety precautions that we're looking at to stay safe. Wash your hands, keep a mask on, stay socially distant, enjoy your fellow human beings from a safe distance. So thank you all for joining us. If there's no more business to come before the council, Ms. Weaver, I will recognize you.
I just had one other thing. I just wanted on Ms. Hulteen's comment about pets and animals. I wanted to thank everyone. There were many who called the farm yesterday. Apparently there was a pig who was walking down 38th Avenue. That pig was picked up by animal control. That's who you should call. You're also welcome to call me, but I won't come pick up random farm animals. But if you're missing a pig, you should call animal control.
Okay. Well, thank you. Well, I hope the pig was availing itself of the sidewalk and not walking dangerously in the road. School is in session and we have children out there. It's getting dark earlier. Please be safe and take care of yourself and one another. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.